Well, those right there would be the police. You know that. Not the kind that chase you or use radar guns to give you speeding tickets, but the kind led by Gordon Sumner, a.k.a. Sting. And it was on this day in 1979, which I have on good authority was a very good vintage. On this day in 1979, 46 years ago, the Police had their first UK number one hit with that song right there. And it was also the third top 20 for the band. That song right there, of course, Message in a Bottle. As we begin our time together for another week. How was your weekend anyway? I hope it was good to you. Boy, oh boy, did we ever fill our time this weekend with all manner of excellent things, including a trip to Owen Sound with the Kitchener Rangers. Not the result we were looking for, but it's hard to argue with a night spent in a hockey rink. I mean, I love the game. I love the game at this level. I love our Kitchener Rangers. So win or lose, it's not so bad making the trip with that gang. We also, before that, on Saturday, got out to the Wellesley Apple Butter and Cheese Festival. And I don't know if it was just my eyes or my poor memory, but it seemed bigger and better and it just everything. And the weather, oh my goodness, what a day we had on Saturday for the Wellesley ABC. It was a packed town, and it seemed as though everybody was having a good time. The volunteers were in fine form, and kudos to one and all for an excellent event again. One of the signature festivals in our community last Saturday in every September. And the Wellesley Apple Butter and Cheese Festival did not disappoint. Yes, I checked out the craft beer garden. And yes, I came home with my liter of Wellesley apple cider as well, because that's what you do in these here parts. Followed that up yesterday on the beautiful day that it was. Had the chance to get together with a couple of old friends, friends that I made working in this ridiculous radio industry many years ago. In fact, we counted back. It's more than 20 now. We all worked at the same top 40 radio station that is still in existence in this city. But you know what? We don't think it's as good now as it was when we were working at it. But these were a couple of great souls, and it was just amazing to spend time with them. I think they were going to kick us out. We kind of triangulated our locations because we don't all live here anymore. And we ended up meeting in Milton as a kind of middle ground. And I think we spent like 3 hours sitting at the restaurant. It didn't take that long to eat our meal and enjoy a beverage, but we had a lot to catch up on. It was great to see the guys. And I took advantage of the beautiful weather to be out, of course, on the motorcycle, because what else would you want to ride on a day like yesterday? And I just got to say, I mean, I'm no new driver by any stretch of the imagination, four-wheeled vehicle or two-wheel, but my goodness gracious, there are a lot of cars on the 401 these days, and we are spectacularly bad at maneuvering them. One white Mercedes in particular that was just doing the whole weave from one side, like the left lane to the right lane, through the middle lane, back and forth. And goodness gracious me, I'd like to think that if I started the show today and even tomorrow and the next day by reminding you that, you know, you don't have to do 140 even on the 401, and you certainly don't have to be all around the lanes back and forth creating havoc for people. Even if I reminded you that every day, I think we'd still do it, because that's kind of where we're at with our driving these days in such an all-fired hurry. Nonetheless, I'll focus on the good things, which felt like bonus weather on a September the 28th to have, dare I say, the perfect day for motorcycling. I got home just in time for something else, too, after my extended lunch yesterday. At least the critical parts, I would say. And I'll get to that in a moment. But Jersey Bill is on the phone with us early this morning. So let's say good morning to Billy. Hey, Billy.
Yes, and you're in such a good mood. I'm sorry to be a bad news Bill.
What are you going to do? That? Come on, Billy.
Well, the shootings in the U.S. just hit me again, and I always look up where they were. And this time, that LDS church that got shot up yesterday and put on fire. Do you know where that happens to be? It happens to be in
Michigan.
Grand Blanc. Yeah, but it's the Grand Blanc. It's just south of Flint. a place that you know a lot better than I do.
I'm going there next week, Billy. Come on. Don't put the bad juju in the air, would you?
Well, yeah, that's here's the point. The politicians have gone beyond just asking for hope for prayers and thoughts. Now they want to vilify one side against the other. It's just not the way to go. This violence is not really ideologically motivated, but it really is. It just seems that we've entered a much more violent phase in the U.S. and it's just one just has to shake one's head about it. And only that, there was another this horrible incident masked another one, which I heard it was somebody on a boat who shot up a site that serviced the LGBTQ community and also killed people there. It just, I don't know. I shudder for my country. I still would like to get back there someday and just visit relatives and such, but we are in a bad way, and doesn't seem to be much we can do about it.
Billy, I shudder for your country too, and I do not disagree that the temperature is such that in the United States now that we are seeing these increasing incidents of violence. Dare I say, as much as I disagree with our federal government's gun buyback program that they're in the midst of right now, I will say again that I think the United States could learn a thing or two from us here in Canada about gun control and proper regulations and restrictions around firearms. But I think I'll just leave that aside for now. I understand Billy's mourning for his native country. That's why he's Jersey Bill on this show, because he holds dual citizenship and is also a resident of New Jersey. And so he remembers fondly and mourns when he sees what he's been seeing. Maybe also as an American, because it is America's pastime, after all, baseball. Billy's feeling that sense of loss to the great American pastime because a Canadian team is back doing what it has done before.
Still the bases loaded with one out. And another 2-2. Slam to left field. Going back, Palacios. Out of here! Alejandro Kirk with a grand slam, and the Blue Jays lead 5-1 in the first.
How about that Alejandro Kirk yesterday anyway? A grand slam in the first, a 2-run homer later. I got home not long before the 2-run homer that Kirk hit to give the Jays an 8-4 lead. They would go on to a 13-4 romp over the Tampa Bay Rays. And finishing the season with 4 straight wins was exactly what the Blue Jays needed to win the American League East division title. The pennant is ours, first time since 2015, and only the second time in the past 32 years for the Blue Jays to win the American League East. So we get the bye, and we will play, I think it's either the Yankees. Have we figured out who we're playing? Yankees or Red Sox? Anyway, we get the bye. We'll open the divisional series at home next weekend on Saturday. So the other teams can compete in the wild card, and we'll see who we face after that. But what a day. What a day for the Blue Jays. What a weekend for our Toronto Blue Jays as they finished the season in style. And yes, I know, I heard them too. A couple of F-bombs from the players during the post-game interviews on the field. That's what happens when you interview them live, and maybe they're a little bit too enthusiastic, shall we say. Nonetheless, I'm not a prude. I've heard that language before. I might have at times. I don't know if I've ever even used it. That might be a stretch. I'm not sure I've ever talked like that. My mother raised a good boy. One more note before we get on to our Farwell Show 5 and then open the phone lines to you for our morning wake-up call. You were probably hearing during All News Mornings this morning with Christine Clark and Mark Douglas, our reporter Josh Piercy talking about the event later today. Kitchener Council will begin its council meeting on site at the South End Rec Complex, where the new name of the complex will be announced along with a considerable donation. I do think those two things are connected to one another. Sounds to me like a naming rights that will be unveiled today. And I just thought it would be worth reminding you that I am all for this sort of thing. Let's get the advertisements on the buses and the trains, wrap them right up with as much advertising as we can. It's maybe not the most altruistic way of contributing back to one's community on the part of corporate Waterloo region, because they do get something in return, right? They get visibility. They get the name of the rec complex or the arena or the room at the library, whatever it happens to be. I get that. But you know what? It's a way for municipalities to generate revenue that keeps our taxes a little bit lower. It's a way of corporate Waterloo region finding its way to help offset those tax increases. I'll point you to Rim Park. I'll point you to all kinds of different things in our community that have business names on them because they pay for that privilege and that visibility. And like I said, I'm here for it. Let's get those trains wrapped with advertising. Let's get more advertising on buses. Let's sell whatever corporate Waterloo region is willing to buy. And then you and I will pay a little bit less tax next time around. All right, to your Farwell Show 5 for this Monday morning, the 29th of September. Number one, Canada's housing minister is going to be in Kitchener today. Gregor Robertson will be joined by Waterloo MP Bardish Chagger for a housing announcement on King Street East, not far from River Road. There's an apartment tower project underway there right now, and that will be the site of today's announcement. Number two, a passport kiosks outage that caused delays at customs in some of Canada's busiest airports has been resolved. The Canada Border Services Agency says the issue at its primary inspection kiosks has been dealt with, but some travelers could still experience delays for a short period of time. The federal government is urging you to check your flight status on your airline's website before going to the airport if indeed you are traveling today. Number three on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, Alberta MP Heather McPherson has launched her bid for the federal NDP leadership. McPherson made the announcement in Edmonton over the weekend, promising to make the new Democratic Party a viable choice once again. She also took a shot at the Prime Minister, calling Mark Carney a conservative in a liberal jersey. McPherson joins filmmaker and journalist Avi Lewis in the race to replace Jagmeet Singh. Number four, the Ontario Liberal Party has begun its search for a new leader. The party announced yesterday it has created a new committee as it looks to replace outgoing leader Bonnie Crombie after she resigned following a weak show of support. The party's executive council approved the committee, which will provide recommendations on how to approach the leadership contest. Party President Catherine McGarry says the committee will reach out to its members to help guide the contest's process. And if you're thinking to yourself, Catherine McGarry, that's a familiar name. Well, yes, it should be. She was the former MPP for the city of Cambridge and, of course, the former mayor in the city of Cambridge. And number five on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, Reap Green Solutions is teaming up with the Kitchener Waterloo Library of Things for a pollinator plant pop-up fundraiser this Saturday. This unique event and fundraiser will offer native shrubs and tree seedlings that support pollinators and climate-resilient landscapes. It's all part of REAP's Rain Smart Neighborhoods program, a partnership between REAP and the City of Kitchener, helping Kitchener residents reduce flood risks and improve their water quality. Pre-orders of plants close today. Saturday's fundraiser runs from 11 until 1 at the KW Library of Things. And that is your Farwell Show 5 for this Monday morning. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, your morning wake-up call. And I got to tell you, much of the weekend, I was thinking about Canada Post. I was thinking about an organization that is losing about $10 million every day. Every day. And yet, some way, somehow, seems unwilling to change its business model. This confuses and confounds me quite a bit, if I'm being honest. And so, because I was thinking about it all weekend long, I thought maybe you've got some thoughts and ideas around Canada Post and the strike that is currently underway again. It feels like still, though, because this labor unrest has been going on close to 2 years now. So that was kind of dominating my thoughts over the weekend until the Blue Jays' big win yesterday. And then I thought, wow, my pennant clinching Toronto Blue Jays. And maybe you've got some Blue Jays fever this morning, too. I'm decked out in my Blue Jays shirt. So we got 2 ways to go here. Canada Post and why the organization seems unwilling to change, and how excited you are that the Blue Jays are headed to the Division Series starting this weekend. A few days off, and then here we go. Okay, Blue Jays. Pick your poison this morning on your wake-up call coming up. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. You got some Blue Jays fever this morning? How about a little bit of Canada Post confusion? Our morning wake-up call at 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. Jerry, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How are you? Happy Monday.
Happy Monday to you. I'm great, thank you.
So, I don't know if I want to touch that Canada Post this early in the morning. That's pretty frustrating. I just look at that as, there's a hole in the ship that's going down. Who cares how it's there? Fix it before everybody gets wet. But no, I just want to touch on the Blue Jays. I was just a tad disappointed with Captain Kirk yesterday when he hit that grand slam. Just a tad. Thinking there was a perfect opportunity for him to do an epic bat flip. And I guess he was still enthralled with the fact that he hit it out. But I just thought that would have been the icing on the cake, and nice epic bat flip on that one.
Interesting point. And I guess the bat flip's been done. I always like the guys who do something pretty great and then act like they've been there before. But what a day it was for Alejandro Kirk. He had the big home run on Saturday as well, snapping out of a really bad slump, and then not one but 2 home runs and 6 RBIs yesterday. And yes, Virginia, our Blue Jays are headed to the American League Division Series.
Let's play ball.
2-2 again. And a drive to deep left field. Gone! What a scene here at the Rogers Center.
Okay, Blue Jays. Let's play ball.
George Springer has left the yard. A fly ball that just kept going and going and going.
Ball dog, the ball hard. That's okay. It's a night game.
Again, and Barger launches one. Way back in right center and gone.
Bring on the White Sox. Bring on the Bo Sox. Bring on the Brewers, the Rangers, and the Yankees too.
Ground ball fair. Guerrero to Lauer, and they've done it. Blue Jays are American League East Division champions for the first time in 10 years.
You guys are unbelievable. You're selfless. I say it all the time. And I said the sky's not falling, and guess what? It didn't. All right, you guys kept going about it. You did it the right way. Some people said we did it the hard way, but we did it our way. Let him keep going.
Blue Jays. Let's play ball.
I mean, if that doesn't get you excited, I don't know what will. We actually get to go to the game on Saturday, which has me even more excited. Jerry called a moment ago, referenced that bat flip by Jose Bautista back in 2015. I feel as though the bat flip game is one of those games that millions of people apparently went to. Oh, yeah, I was there. I don't know if you have any memories from Blue Jays' success in the past, but I got a great text from an old buddy of mine yesterday. Said, so what do you think? Let's head to Toronto and join a parade. I think I'd like to slide into home plate at the Dome tonight. And that took me back to my second year of university. And said buddy and I were sitting in our poli-sci class like the good students that we were. And I looked at him and said, the Jays could clinch the pennant tonight. You want to go to the game? And so we left our class. I borrowed my parents' minivan. This is 1992. What am I going to do? And we drove to Toronto. We could not, as the struggling students we were, afford the price of the tickets being put up for sale on the streets. So we went down the street to a bar, watched the game. The Jays won. We poured out into the street. I bought a T-shirt right on the street that lasted for, honestly, I must have had the thing for 20 plus years, and joined the parade up Yonge Street that night in Toronto, and then back down Yonge Street, back to what was then still the Sky Dome, and somebody found an open door. This is a true story, and I'm not necessarily proud of my civil disobedience in this regard, but somebody found an open door still at the stadium, and we poured back in, and we ran down those steps in the lower bowl area, hopped onto the field, and ran the bases at the Sky Dome, sliding into home plate, and then beating it the heck out of there before anybody caught everybody, I guess. I don't know. That's what happened. Not on this day, but when the Jays clinched 33 years ago. I was a young man. I think I'm allowed to plead some sort of youthful ignorance on that score. Doug is with us on the phone. Good morning, Doug.
Good morning, Michael.
Douglas, good morning.
Yeah, I have a news for you. You were seen.
By whom?
Because you and your friends were the inspiration for the Junior Jays.
I love it. They shouldn't have left the door open, Doug.
Other kids do this.
Yeah, there you go.
You know something? One point, I got a kick out of the caller, but just a tad disappointed that Kirky didn't flip the bat. And he deserved to flip the bat. He also deserved to flip the bird to every last person from the beginning of the season who trashed him as not being a good catcher, not belonging on the team. That man has worked his hind off, and this year in particular, he's had to face more workload. And like any other player, every now and then they run into a slump, and he came out of it in fine style. And I'm so happy for the Blue Jays. We were in our living room yesterday with our grandsons, and they went right off the deep end.
I love it, Doug. I love it. And you're right. This whole team, George Springer had a career year. Anyway, lots of fun, lots of reasons to be excited about the Blue Jays today. And I'm sure we can talk more about this during Talkback, rant or rave from noon to 1 today. We must move on. I got to get you to the 570 News Center for an update. And then who noticed the missing anthem at a local university celebration? We'll talk about it coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Something was missing from a recent convocation ceremony at Wilfrid Laurier University in Waterloo. And that something had long been a part of these convocation ceremonies at Wilfrid Laurier University in Waterloo. So its absence was notable and, dare I say, noted by several faculty who, in response to the absence of this signature part of convocation ceremonies, issued an open letter to university leadership. William McNally is a professor in the School of Business and Economics at WLU and joins us to talk about it. William, good morning.
Good morning, Mike.
What is
nice
it
to be on the show?
Oh, it's nice to have you on the show. Thank you for making the time this morning. What is it that you noticed missing from a convocation ceremony recently?
Yeah, in the June convocation, they didn't sing "O Canada," the national anthem, and that had historically been part of the process, and they're going to reinstitute it in October, but they dropped it back in June.
And so why did this cause concern for you and other members of the faculty at Laurier?
Well, public education is justified in part by the fact that it builds better citizens. So when you sing "O Canada," the national anthem at convocation, it acknowledges that connection. And of course, taxpayers subsidize university in Canada. So singing "O Canada," I think, pays respect to the citizens and taxpayers of Canada. So I think it's not acknowledging the role that universities play and the debt that they owe taxpayers.
Was the national anthem, was "O Canada" the only missing or changed part of that ceremony in June?
Yeah, so they've traditionally had a land acknowledgement as part of it. That they kept that, and then they dropped the anthem and put a Thanksgiving statement, which was delivered by the Vice President of Indigenous Initiatives, and he spoke that in his native language. So it was a very political change, and it wasn't neutral. There's this idea that universities should be neutral, like the referee in a fight, not one of the combatants, but just enforcing the rules. And they were definitely taking a political position by doing this.
So you mentioned, William, the national anthem was absent in June. It will return next month in October. Have you learned at all? Any idea as to why the change was made in June?
Well, so we sent our open letter a couple of weeks ago, first thing in the morning, and we got a reply before lunchtime telling us that the anthem had been restored for the October convocation ceremonies. So that signaled to us that we weren't the only ones who had some concerns about this. Obviously, the president was getting some heat from other quarters. But no, the response we received didn't explain why it happened, didn't say who had made the decision, and really left us with a lot of questions about, how this happened. And it really didn't signal a good decision-making process.
Has there been any further response since to the open letter that you issued?
Well, there was a piece, and this is probably how this came on your radar. There was what would we call it? An opinion piece by Louisa D'Amato in the Kitchener-Waterloo Record last Monday, and that, I think, really ignited some or drew some attention to this. So I had CC'd one of the board members, and he had said that his phone lit up like a Christmas tree when that Record article hit the presses. So there's an awareness of it now, I think, and hopefully more discussion about it.
Why do you think, William, and the other undersigned on this open letter, why do you think that the national anthem should be a part of convocation ceremonies? Not just because we've always done it that way, I'm sure.
Well, I just think for the two reasons that we talked about, or I talked about, that part of the justification for a public university education, publicly subsidized, is that we're building better citizens. So this acknowledges that connection in the student's mind as they graduate. And the other is that there's a big subsidy that taxpayers help pay for the tuition, and we need to acknowledge that and in a way thank them by singing "O Canada."
So does the fact that the anthem will return at ceremonies beginning in October close this issue for you? Are you satisfied with this outcome?
No, because this wasn't a one-time event. This is part of a broader pattern of non-neutrality at the university, and I would trace this back to at least the Lindsay Shepherd affair back in 2017, and then after that, the university put a security fee policy in place to try and block controversial speakers. And then in 2019, they advocated that the students and faculty should attend a climate strike demonstration in Uptown Waterloo. And a couple of years ago, they put in an Indigenous strategic plan, which embeds all this all these ideas like decolonization in the university. And then just in the last few months, faculty members were given a syllabus, course outline template to use for their courses, and it had a big land acknowledgement at the top and a gender inclusivity statement. Recently, there was a call for a research award, and it said that the applicants should explain their research and explain how equity, diversity, and inclusivity were embedded in their research. So these are very political actions and not consistent with a neutral university. And again, that a university should be like the home of the critics, but it should not itself be the critic.
Is Wilfrid Laurier University currently a home for the critics, or do you feel that the critics have been silenced?
Oh, terribly silenced. That's the problem with being non-neutral, is that when the university takes a position on a contentious issue, it intimidates and silences people with opposing points of view. And Laurier is very much not a place of free inquiry right now. It should be allowing students and faculty to explore these issues and arrive at their own conclusions. And that's how we learn, and that's how we question bad policy, right, is by having arguments about it. And right now, those arguments aren't really happening because Laurier's not holding up dissent and dispute and free inquiry as kind of a primary goal.
So then, William, are you saying that issues like colonization, the warming climate, equity, diversity, inclusion, gender diversity are not important issues for a university to explore? Or must we, if we're exploring those, also explore every other idea? Is it an all or nothing sort of thing?
Well, it's just who does the exploring. Absolutely, those should be topics of exploration, but it should be the faculty and students who are doing the exploring and not the university putting out public statements or embedding positions on these issues in their policies. They need to stand back and let everybody else argue about it as much as they want, but not put their finger on the scale and tip the debate.
This brings to mind for me, William, one of the great debates that has been raging the last many years, and I think came to a head again very recently with the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and that is the idea that our post-secondary campuses are less places of education today and more places of indoctrination. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I agree with that completely. We're telling students how or what to think and not how to think, and part of that is this pattern of taking these very political positions at an institutional level. We're sort of instructing the students that you should recite a land acknowledgement, that's a neutral act, when in fact it's actually consistent with a particular lens on the world called post-colonial critical theory, and so absolutely we've gone too much in the direction of ideology. That Charlie Kirk assassination was really horrifying to me and to everybody who's trying to advocate for free speech, because he was shot on a university campus while trying to engage students in debate.
William, I appreciate your time on the show this morning. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Okay, it's been a pleasure, Mike.
Bye now.
Bye.
William McNally is a professor in the School of Business and Economics at Wilfrid Laurier University. I'll be honest with you, as I prepare things for the show, I have an idea of where I think I'd like to carry on the conversation with you. And my idea coming into this today was focused on the national anthem, because that's what sparked this open letter to administration at Wilfrid Laurier University. And the national anthem has been reinstituted and will be a part of convocation ceremonies again beginning in October. So case closed almost. But what I was thinking about was one of the other areas of work for me, which of course is broadcasting Kitchener Rangers games, and the national anthem gets sung before every game that I attend, both here in Canada and in the United States. And there have been people who have said over the years, this is a meaningless ritual. We shouldn't have the anthem before sporting events. I quite personally enjoy it. I enjoy it thoroughly, especially in Kitchener when we are at the Memorial Auditorium, so named as a tribute to our local war veterans. I'm a big fan of hearing the anthem before sporting events, period. But I thought, well, maybe this is a talking point. Maybe the anthem doesn't belong at convocation ceremonies anymore. And then listening to William McNally, our guest this morning, and this idea of post-secondary campuses not being areas of the freest speech and instead being areas for indoctrination versus education, which is a heated subject of discussion of late. I thought, well, maybe that's the direction I take this with you, because you've been through perhaps a post-secondary institution in your past. Maybe your kids are there right now or going soon. Maybe that's the question to ask this morning. And so I will. Do you believe that our post-secondary campuses are places where we learn as opposed, and we develop critical thinking skills as opposed to, I guess, being told what to think? Is it a place for free expression today, a university campus? Let me know your thoughts on that. 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. I'm personally a product of both a university campus and a college campus, granted, 30 years ago now, but always felt it was absolutely a place. I've said repeatedly that my post-secondary experience was where I learned how to learn. Nobody told me what to think. I absolutely learned how to think and develop ideas and build arguments, etc. I'm incredibly grateful for, and that was in an arts program. Take that for what you will, but that was my experience 30 odd years ago. Got no complaints about it whatsoever. Maybe things have changed. Maybe you have a perspective on it. Happy to hear from you on the Mike Farwell Show this morning, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
There was a call for a research award, and it said that the applicant should explain their research and explain how equity, diversity, and inclusivity were embedded in their research. So these are very political actions and not consistent with a neutral university. And again, that a university should be like the home of the critics, but it should not itself be the critic.
William McNally is a professor in the School of Business and Economics at Wilfrid Laurier University. He was one of about 24 faculty members at the school who issued an open letter to Laurier administration after the national anthem was mysteriously absent from a convocation ceremony in June. The school says the national anthem will be reinstated for convocation ceremonies beginning again next month, but this has raised broader concerns about the freedom of expression on campus, or the lack thereof, and this whole idea that's been bandied about for many a year now as to whether or not our post-secondary campuses are places for education or indoctrination. And that idea invoked in our conversation with William this morning, and so we ask the question of you and go to the phones to find out an answer. Bernie, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How are you today?
Good, thank you.
I'm a first-time caller. I've listened, but I haven't really called before.
Well, I'm very happy to have you as a first-time caller, sir.
Yes! Yes!
Okay.
Yes!
First of all, I am a former educator, so I think to a certain degree education has been, we run in a particular highway, and we've indoctrinated our students all along the way. We felt that it was always for the good, but it may not have always been that way.
You believe, as a former educator, we have always indoctrinated students. So I was indoctrinated even though I didn't realize it at the time.
I believe so. As an educator, I say we did it with, I believe, the best of intentions, but at the same time, we did indoctrinate, and so it's part of the process. But I think we also tried to teach our students to think for themselves, but they still had to stay between the lines.
So can you give me an idea, like what would have been, as you look back on your education career, Bernie, would have been an example of this indoctrination?
Well, that we expected students to act a particular way and to behave a particular way, even though at the time when I was teaching, we didn't have a fairly good understanding about, people with learning disabilities and people who learned in particular styles. We expected them to all learn the same way. And if they struggled with it, that wasn't our fault as an educator. That was their fault as a student. And, as an educator now looking at it, I realized that I was, at times a little narrow-minded that way. And so in a particular way, I indoctrinated my students.
Bernie, I appreciate the insight and the reflections from your career. I appreciate you calling in today as a first-time caller. Jane, good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, Jane, I can hardly hear you. Are you under the bed?
Oh, no, I'm not. Is that better?
No, I'm afraid not really.
Is that better?
A little bit.
Yes, I'll try to speak up. I went to law school at Queen's, and at the time it was like 1984, and we had Dr. Morgenthaler. And that was all about free speech, and it just reminds me so much of what happened with Mr. Cook, that there was a lot of passion both ways.
I can certainly understand that, Jane, and I think I get the sense of where you're going here, because Charlie Kirk was a controversial figure, as would have been Dr. Henry Morgenthaler, who was on campus at Queen's when you were there for law school back in the 1980s. But I think that would suggest then that Jane believes there was a freedom of expression at that time. Bernie doesn't seem to think as though it exists anymore. Interesting conversation to explore as we get things underway on the show this morning. I'm going to take a break, get you an update from the 570 News Center, and then concerned residents in Waterloo want to ensure council there is being transparent. We'll talk about the concerns coming up on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. A new organization has formed in Waterloo. It's about as grassroots as it gets, at least from where I'm sitting. And the intention of this group is to keep its eyes on council in Waterloo. Hence the name, I think, Eyes on Waterloo. And two of its founding members join me in studio, Jeff Percival and Wendy Ridgway with me. Jeff, good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. Thank you for having us on air.
It's a pleasure to have you here. And Wendy, a very good morning to you as well.
Good morning to you, Mike. Thank you for having us.
I'll start with you if I could, Wendy. Eyes on Waterloo. What's the group all about?
So Eyes on Waterloo was formed after the City of Waterloo Council changed their mind on the use of the St. Columba property just 3 months after purchasing it. So Council announced in February the plans for a 3-year temporary art space. And then in June, they voted to proceed directly to housing. So those of us from the neighborhood who had attended that vote meeting felt unheard. And in fact, we felt it was quite apparent that the decision was made before delegations were heard. And as a result, council lost our trust that evening, and we didn't feel they were transparent. So EOW is a diverse group of concerned residents in Lincoln Heights who want to ensure that the housing developed on the St. Columba property is appropriate density and the type of housing to suit this well-established corner in the middle of our neighborhood. It's in the same block as Lincoln Heights Elementary School. It is zoned R1, and in our minds, it should remain that. EOW wants to ensure that we have public input in the initial and in all phases, not just one informal meeting and then a formal meeting where it appears that decisions are already made. The current process seems to be one of informative rather than input. And this is our neighborhood, and we know it best. So to stay informed, EOW plans to have representatives at all council meetings, or if that's not possible, we'll view them the next day. We will identify ourselves wearing lanyards bearing the EOW logo, and we plan to be vocal on media. And so thanks for allowing us the opportunity to speak today, Mike.
No, I'm happy to do so because I remember the conversation we had, Wendy, after the St. Columba decision was made at Waterloo Council. And I loved the idea of an arts space, frankly, and remember well our conversation after that. What concerns did you raise at the time that you do not felt were heard by council?
So the delegations that spoke from the neighborhood, Jeff and I were both delegations. Yep. We are very concerned about the traffic concerns. It's a very busy corner. Lincoln Heights Elementary School currently uses the parking lot for pickup and drop off for the school. So young parents are extremely concerned. We're concerned about the type of housing that may come in. We don't seem to be getting any information about that. And, you know, it's young children walking not only to Lincoln Heights, but to St. Agnes. They come from that end of the neighborhood. I saw some children this morning biking probably to St. Agnes. I'm sure that's where they were headed.
It's an extremely busy intersection.
Yeah.
And
this is Lincoln and Mayfield, right?
Yes,
yeah, that's
right.
where we're at.
It's very, very busy there. And the density, of the amount of children that basically every day in the morning and at the end of school that are traveling there, and it's just a lot. And the consideration of what type of housing, you've, and I mean this in a compliment, you've brought up that it can't, council can't satisfy everybody, and we understand that. And our community, our neighborhood, we do have different types of housing in our neighborhood, and we understand all of that. But we just want to make sure that what gets put on that property is suitable for an old established neighborhood, because my home is 1954. And we understand it's going to be higher density, but if they put up a tall building, it's not going to. It's going to be a neighborhood destroyer and not a neighborhood contributor.
Have you given any thought, Jeff, as to, and as a neighborhood group, as to what kind of housing that you think fits or works there?
Oh, definitely we have, yeah. And, we feel we know it's going to be like multiple units, but it should probably not be higher than 2 stories, is one thing I think we both feel very strongly about. And the neighborhood feels strongly about. Like we're up to 50 members now.
About that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Within Eyes on Waterloo,
yeah.
you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And apparently we were one of the strongest turnouts at that council meeting historically. So we've got a lot of people that are very vested, and the people of our community, our neighborhood, they're good people. They understand that, we need a diversity in the type of housing in our neighborhood, but we're also very intelligent people. And that council meeting did not wash well with almost everybody that was there. We felt it was prearranged.
Okay, take me back to that meeting if you can, Jeff. And when you say prearranged, so that means you were there, you were allowed to make your presentation, make your feelings known, but you don't feel as though council, like they were just going through the motions?
Yeah, that's how we, yes. And I can only speak for myself, sure, because there's, I don't want to speak for everybody in the group, but the group that was there, we walked out of that meeting a little bit smacked. It was just a little bit surprising. That's how we kind of felt for the most part.
And there was 25 of us there.
Okay.
And it was placed at the very end of the agenda, which is fine. Someone has to be at the end.
We had to wait till after midnight.
Unfinished.
Wasn't it after midnight?
It was over at midnight, after midnight.
Yeah.
And, Mayor McCabe seemed a little upset that we were leaving right away as soon as the vote was done. Well, we were done. we were done.
Yeah. And we want to work with City Council. I want to make that very clear. We just want decisions to be made that are in the best interest. We understand about the housing crisis. We understand that has to be addressed. But we also want our neighborhood that's established to be considered in terms of what goes on that property. We've lost our first game, when it came to the Arts Center. And I think they lost some. I think City Council lost some friends at that meeting, and it's unfortunate.
I recall a recent council meeting in Waterloo, and I played the audio on the air because I found it so interesting. And this is for a new development of 11 stacked townhomes by Kiwanis Park. And one of the councillors, I forget whom, at the meeting said, listen, you should welcome this in your neighborhood because it means other people want to move where you are. You chose this neighborhood for a reason. Other people are doing the same thing. So 11 stacked townhouses are going to be part of this neighborhood near Kiwanis Park, where residents similar to you were saying, we're not so sure this fits. So how do you feel about a response like that from your city council? We should welcome this. Other people want to be in the same neighborhood you are.
So I too listened to that. It was Exmoor and Woolwich, and that was a very interesting meeting to listen to because the property size is about the same. I think it's 1.46 and ours is 1.04 acres. So I did not feel listening to that the City of Waterloo Council had learned anything from the experience with Lincoln Heights, because I did not feel that they were listening to the delegations that evening as well. And that's one reason why we want input from the initial stage rather than the process right now, I believe, is one informal meeting and one formal meeting. And that's what I believe those residents had. And decisions, again, seem to already have been made, that it wasn't really a debate. Delegates get to speak, but then you cannot speak afterwards.
Unless a councillor has a question of you. There could be a little back and forth then.
But once you've sat down, right, you are not allowed to speak afterwards.
Yeah.
And I understand that from the efficiency of a council meeting, but it seems a little disheartening. And so that's why EOW is really hoping for input from the initial stages. So right now there is a group of city staff who have been asked to bring a report forward probably in November with steps forward. But we would like some of that information shared before the council meeting, because we would like to have input, and it seems more efficient to speak with the neighborhood in the initial stages than to wait until you're well into a process and then go, oh, maybe that would have been better.
Yeah.
Jeff, you mentioned that EOW, Eyes on Waterloo, is now about 50 residents in Lincoln Heights strong. How did this all come together?
I think that council meeting was what triggered it. I can speak for myself personally, which got my wheels turning. I speak to a council person before because I was one of the people speaking at the meeting, and I kind of felt, because I'd been to 3 or 4 meetings before this one, and I had found from my historic visits to the meetings that that council was didn't seem to act like they were working for the citizens of Waterloo. So this council person that I talked to via email, I basically said, this is what I want to say at the meeting. And one of the things that I was going to say is that we are the employer and the council are the employees. And I got, well, you can't say that. You're just going to upset everybody. And I thought to myself, if I was a city council person, I'd be honored to have that job. And I am working for the people of Waterloo. So I kind of walked away going, what is wrong with saying that? And that kind of that's what's triggered it with me, is these people need to be knowing that we're going to be there watching and putting and giving them input into the decisions that affect our community.
Is council at all aware of Eyes on Waterloo, that this group has formed?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
They are.
Yeah.
They are. We've met with our city councillor, and I've also, on behalf of the group of EOW, sent a second memo to one of the staff people who are working on that report to remind him of the comments that have been said by the members of this group. And that one I signed member EOW, because we now have our lanyards, we have an identification, and I think that's important to have that identification.
And you've been doing this for a long time, Mike. I mean, I've complimented you on the air before because you are the eyes of the region, and I've always respected you for what you do. Is you bring things to the surface and get people talking about it, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get people aware again, and I'm guilty of it historically. You get into your life, you put on your blinders, and you're concerned about your kids, your house, your job, and you just lose track of it. And all of a sudden you get blindsided by something that's happening in your community that you knew nothing about. And we want to bring awareness to people again. And we also, we're focusing on our ward, of course. And I'm going to, I'd like to offer that if people want to form Eyes on Waterloo in their own wards, we want it to spread. And then they can take care of, because they will have their own independent concerns within their wards. And we would like this to spread throughout Waterloo.
How do you share what you learn and what you're doing?
We share it. Wendy's got it set up online for us to share. Yeah.
So with our group in Lincoln Heights, I'm sharing by email.
Right. Yeah. So we email back and forth. Yeah.
We have like a document, and people are posting news articles that are applicable, and we're trying to learn the process of other groups for sure, and learn how city council functions.
Yeah.
But I want to give you credit, Mike, for connecting Jeff and I, because when I was interviewed the day after the vote, you mentioned that someone had phoned and wanted to start a watchdog group, and would I be interested? And so I said, absolutely. And Jeff contacted me. And Jeff contacted me after that interview. So you were instrumental in connecting us, and we thank you for that.
Well, I applaud the both of you and the other residents, 4 dozen others that have connected like this to keep tabs on what's going on at City Hall, because I think it's incredibly important that we are engaged in our communities. And Jeff, your point earlier about having those blinders on, that's my roast beef and mashed potatoes analogy. I use it often, where we get caught up, like what most of us are doing every day is out there trying to put the roast beef and mashed potatoes on the table on Sunday night. And if we're lucky, there's some gravy on the side, and off we go. But we get caught up in our everyday lives. And that's one of the things we try to do with this show, is make it easy and digestible for you to know what's going on. But grassroots efforts like this are incredibly laudable from where I'm sitting. So kudos to the both of you. And I look forward to, were you welcomed with open arms when you talked to your counselor about this?
Our counselor was I was the one who had connected, and she was happy to meet with us, actually. There was no hesitation.
We've been doing meetings actually on the property of St. Columba. Yeah. We bring our lawn chairs, we sit, we bring our coffees and form a big circle, and she was there, and she was, really good about it.
Good.
I don't think our name was well liked, but that's just my perspective. The
EOW name.
Yeah, the EOW name. Yeah.
But I feel like she was very receptive, and we had very good converson. Yeah. Members were pleased. She and
she went to bat for us,
gave me some good
for
feedback.
Our cause at the time too.
Yeah. She's on our side.
I applaud you for doing this. I think it's a terrific initiative, and I hope that I look forward to more conversations as you keep your eyes on Waterloo Council.
Do you mind if I give my email address out on the air for anybody that wants to to get the artwork
listen,
for this?
My dozens and dozens of listeners, Jeff, might start emailing you right away. So, okay, it's by all means.
Okay, so if anybody wants to get the lanyards and the logo for Eyes on Waterloo and form a group in your own ward, it's JAMESPTY perc@gmail.com. If you email me, I will connect with you and give you the artwork in a PDF format and also give you some printouts and some lanyards.
All right. Was that J. James, PERC?
Yeah.
J. James, PERC@gmail.com.
Yeah.
Keep up the good work. I look forward to our next conversation.
Well, thank you, Mike. Thank you for everything you do for the community.
Jeff Percival.
Mike.
You're welcome, Wendy. Wendy Ridgway, members of Eyes on Waterloo, a new residents group, grassroots as it gets, formed to keep tabs on Waterloo Council. This is the Mike Farwell Show. Yes, I'll take a lanyard. I might even wear it on the air one day. The watchful eye of citizens of Waterloo. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
We want to bring awareness to people again. And we also, we're focusing on our ward, of course. And I'd like to offer that if people want to form Eyes on Waterloo in their own wards, we want it to spread. And then they can take care of, because they will have their own independent concerns within their wards. And we would like this to spread throughout Waterloo.
It's like having a new batch of Mike Farwell Show reporters, which is good because we try to be in as many places as we can, but we can't be everywhere. About 50 residents of the Lincoln Heights neighborhood in Waterloo have formed the group Eyes on Waterloo because they don't feel council has been as transparent as it could be, and they want to watch more closely. So you're connecting people in your neighborhood to better understand and keep a closer eye on what happens at City Hall. And I just think that's good across the board. Let's go to the phones. Mike is with us. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Mike. Very, very timely topic here. Even though I live in Huron County and Bruce County now, I still have property in Waterloo, which entitles me to vote there. Could I ask a favor? Could you post this on your website or your Facebook page for this? Because I think that we have not been getting the response or the accountability from the City of Waterloo Council or even Regional Council on a number of issues. And I'm wondering if you could post that email of the gentleman on your website because I think it's a very timely thing. And unfortunately, with the demise of the Waterloo Chronicle and some of local journalism, these guys aren't held to account anymore. And that's my thoughts, Mike.
All right, Mike, I appreciate the call and the thoughts. If there had been an online presence already for Eyes on Waterloo, I would certainly share that. But you know what? It's a good point. I'll figure out a way to make it look at least half decently appealing and share that email address with you on our Facebook page. So check out facebook.com/The Mike Farwell Show. And I'll get it up in the next little bit, I promise. And to Mike's point, and Jeff and Wendy and I talked about this before we went on the air, where Mike's right. The Waterloo Chronicle is no longer with us. I used to cover councils and school board meetings in this community, and I was one of at least 4 people that was at every meeting. There was me from the radio station. There was a rep from CTV Kitchener. There was the Waterloo Region Record, plus the Waterloo Chronicle, the Kitchener Post, the Cambridge Times, depending on where we were. There were at least 4 of us as media members at every meeting. You don't see that anymore. And it's a shame because we should monitor, not because we think city councils are evil, but because it keeps people engaged in what's going on. So I applaud the group for doing what they're doing. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Well, I shared with you during the show preview video today that's always posted on our social media channels, the Facebook page, X at Farwell_WR, that starting at 10:30, we're going to be talking about 2 of my favorite things, books and music. It's Monday, so 30 minutes from now, This Week in Music History with Brian Allison, our musicologist. But right now, and in the next 30 minutes, we devote our time to books. We'll tell you about Cambridge Reads in just a little bit, but one of my favorite local stores. I say that not just because the co-owner of it sits in studio with me. I say it because I mean it. I do love me some books, and when I want a book, Wordsworth is the place I go. David Worsley, the co-owner there, joins me in studio. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mike.
And David brings along with him Sarah Campbell, who is the co-creator, I might call you a co-instigator in this regard, Sarah, of the First Editions Club. But welcome. It's nice to see you.
I'll take that. Thank you, Mike.
David, let's talk about the First Editions Club. I mean, when we hear First Edition, for book lovers like me, it gets you kind of excited.
And that's exactly what should happen.
Good.
This is an old pro, ladies and gentlemen. The First Editions Club, we basically, like most good ideas we stole it from somewhere else. Sarah's going to tee off on that momentarily. But the first edition of a book is simply the first state, the nearest to the original work that the author presents. And the copyright page of any book is the tell-all here. There are ways of saying this is a first edition as opposed to a reprint. And the idea of collecting books is, well, there's simply no thrill like it when you have a library of signed, pristine editions of books that they could accrue in value, and we'll get to numbers in a sec, or they could just look really damn fine on a shelf. And there's no downside here. The First Editions Club at Wordsworth Books will endeavor once a month to make pristine, signed copies of novels that Sarah and I believe will have lasting merit. You're going to look good 3, 5, 10 years from now, having original editions of these on your shelves. And collecting books is not unlike collecting anything else. You've got a musicologist shortly. They will tell you, original pressings of that Sex Pistols album is a hell of a lot more desirable than the reprint you can buy today. Still cool, still listens fine. The same book, you can still read it fine in a reprint. Everyone should read it in a reprint. Collecting is another matter. You should have the first printing. And if you can get it signed, you're going to look pretty damn smart, whether this is a monetary pursuit, and it really shouldn't be, but whether this is something that you can love and present to the world as a way of saying, this is me, this is what I care about, this is what I love. And they're also going to look really damn nice on a shelf.
I love that idea, David. And I was saying to both of you during that news update with Matt that I'm jealous every time I walk into Wordsworth Books in Uptown Waterloo, because there you are in a place surrounded by books. And that really does get me excited.
Some of them are even paid for.
So, Sarah, David did allude to the idea being maybe borrowed from, and listen, as a guy doing what I do, I have borrowed everything I've ever done. I promise you that. But how did the idea come to mind?
Anyone who knows me knows how much I love and admire Ann Patchett. She's an incredible writer and owns Parnassus Books in the States. And I've been following her to find my own great picks over a decade now. I think it's been 13, 14 years they've been doing it. They have their First Editions Club. And I always just thought, what an amazing idea, because
what a cool idea.
It's an amazing idea. And it's like you said, it's the love of being surrounded by books. And I think just that feeling now more than ever, it's a security, it's knowledge, it's just such good empathy, and just being able to surround yourself with amazing writers and Canadian writers, and from an independent business right now, which is amazing. And just that we get to take our love of reading and put those incredible reads in our community's hands, who we love so much. And we hope we know what they are going to love as well. I think we do, and Dave definitely does. So we couldn't be more. This is a complete passion project for us. So.
It really is.
Yeah.
And the number of times Sarah, in her year and change here, and the hell, you should have been here years ago. The number of times Sarah has picked a book. It's not unlike a scout saying, this Gretzky kid at 13, you're going to want to keep an eye on this kid, because in 5 years, the number of times Sarah has picked a book and said, hey, there's something here. This is special. And then, of course, it goes up the charts. It gets critical acclaim. It gets, Pulitzer, Nobel Prize money, prize consideration in the fall, where on the book prizes come out. Geez, you got onto that thing in the spring. Well, yeah, kind of did. And it happens all the time. These are books that Sarah and I believe, I've been at this a while too, that we think are going to have lasting merit.
Yeah,
You're going to want this in a couple of years' time when the author's second or third book comes out and goes boom. Because the first printing, publishers generally guess, we're going to print X copies of this because we know a little, but we don't really know. Nobody can read the market thusly. But the reprints, if the book does hit and stick, are considerably larger because, we've got something. Now we're going to make more. And that's great. Great for the author, great for the industry. those first printings are relatively few in number. Louise Penny's got a new book coming out, a beloved Canadian crime writer. Still Life, 20-odd years ago, first editions of that book with a signature, if you can find them, are upwards of $6,000 a shot. Wow. Miriam Taves, beloved Canadian writer. The new book came out about a month and a half ago. And we're only going back a few years. There are book retailers that operate at the higher end of things. That's not us, but anyway. Copies of Women Talking, her arguably breakout novel, with a signature in the first printing, and we're only going back 5 years. $600-700 a crap. Is it about money? It's nice to know, but ultimately this is about what we love and what we think our beloved customers will love.
Yeah. I think it's so cool, and then your Gretzky analogy is not lost on me, because I'm thinking, as a kid, I loved hockey. I collected hockey cards.
Everyone, yeah,
right,
absolutely.
And not too long ago, what did I do with a couple of Gretzky rookie cards?
Oh dear.
That I had hung on to for many, many years. And yeah, I decided this was the time, and many thousands of dollars and I got them in a pack for 25 cents. That was one of several cards. Somehow it lasted, but. There got to be and is it intimidating in any way for either of you? Like you mentioned that Sarah's got this knack she's demonstrated already.
Well
but
and truly.
You are putting yourselves out there to say, okay, to our loyal customers and fellow reading lovers, these are the books that might not just look good on a shelf, but maybe someday, I don't know. I put up a fence with my money. Had to keep the dog in the yard. It's not that I don't like my neighbors.
I get on with my neighbors too. I built a fence with my neighbor not long ago. Is it a question of sorry, if we're picking a wrong book? What do you?
Well, not so much picking a wrong book, but do you feel any pressure?
Oh God, no.
Okay.
No, I mean, we the first author coming up is going to be in town shortly.
Yeah.
And well, that's a no-brainer.
We've got Terry Fallis, his new book, The Marionette, for our first edition pick. And it's coming out October 7th, I believe.
That's right.
And and then we have, with the Waterloo Public Library, a big event at the end of the month, end of October, with him to kick it all off.
And the idea here is we would like to present, I think, a mix of, okay, you've never heard of this author, but trust us.
Yep.
In a few years, you're going to want to, the world is going to know about it, or at least Canada's going to know about it. We're sticking to Canadian authors. But also, we would like to present, major leaguers, to stay with the sports analogy. This is a big deal. This is a signed copy of an already beloved Canadian author. Terry Fallis fits that bill like few others. I think there are 5 Canadian authors who write full-time. Terry's one of them, and he's about as blue chip as it gets.
So how does one who is so inclined and interested become a member of the First Editions Club at Wordsworth Books?
Well, we're going to announce this in a couple of days.
Can you announce it right now?
Obviously, you're first, sir, because why not? A community institution and all that. Basically, get in touch with us at any of our socials. The email address going out shortly will be firsteditionsclub@wordsworthbooks.com.
Very exciting. Sarah, how do you feel about this idea coming to life in Waterloo?
I'm so excited. And I mean, just going back one more time to what you were saying about are we nervous? I watched, thank you for what you said, Dave, but being at the store just for a little while, the magic, that's the only word I can think of it when I see Dave just putting his favorite books, and people don't even hesitate, they don't even blink, they know if Dave says,
well, now wait a second.
No. They know if Dave picks it up and puts it in your hands, they know they've got something special. And I think that this is just going to be a great...
This is an extension of all of that.
Yeah, exactly.
We love what we do.
Yep.
Okay, we know a little bit. But, trust us, you're in good hands.
You are in good hands at Wordsworth Books for sure. And the First Editions Club about to launch, and you can be included in this and not only have a good-looking bookshelf, but it might even be worth $1 or $2 someday. David Worsley, co-owner, Sarah Campbell, co-instigator of the First Editions Club. Thank you both I love what you do, truly. Keep doing it, and thanks for being here this morning.
Thank you so much. Us.
This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. If I had really been prepared today, I just fly by the seat of my pants. Goodness gracious, it must be a Monday thing. But if I had really been prepared today, clearly I would have had a little bit of Ron Burgundy ready for you in that last segment, right? Anchorman, Will Ferrell. My apartment smells of rich mahogany and is filled with many leather-bound books. I didn't deliver the line nearly as well as Will Ferrell, a.k.a. Ron Burgundy, did. My apartment smells of rich mahogany and is filled with many leather-bound books. But that's all I could think of, or one of the things I thought of in that conversation with David and Sarah from Wordsworth Books in Waterloo and the upcoming First Editions Club, where you can add a signed first edition to your bookshelf. And then you too can say what Ron Burgundy famously said in the Will Ferrell movie, Anchorman. We're going to stay in that same vein as we continue our conversations this morning and look ahead to Saturday, where Cambridge Reads is going to take place. It's a book swap event and more, and its organizer, Afsana Tour, joins me on the phone to talk more about it. Afsana, good morning.
Hey, good morning. That's a great segue.
I thank you for dealing with it, putting up with it, because it just popped into my head during the commercial break. But yes, we're talking books, and why wouldn't we want to add the book swap event coming up this Saturday? Can you tell us more about Cambridge Reads?
Yeah, of course. So first off, like you said, it's happening this Saturday, October the 4th. The timings are 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. It will be held at the Blue Heron Public School gym. So previously, the school was known as Ryerson for some of the locals. And the address there is 749 Grand Valley Drive in Cambridge. So the idea really came this summer. The city of Cambridge was giving out some community connections grants. And myself and my colleague, Nikki Rana, who's also on the line, decided we'll apply. And we came up with this book swap because why not bring together the community over something that we can all share a love for, all ages, backgrounds, books, culture, storytelling. Who can get behind that?
I know I can. Absolutely. So how do I go about swapping books at the event on Saturday?
Yeah, absolutely. So, maybe you have some books that are pre-loved. Maybe there are some favorites that you want to share with others. It's a really great way to, come out, meet some new people as well. So when you come into the gym, we'll have various tables set up by genre. So let's say you really like some sci-fi. So you're going to head over to the sci-fi table. Maybe there's a couple of other people there who also have brought their sci-fi books, and you can, sort of chat, swap them. It's, like I said, great way to meet people and pick up some new books, maybe be introduced to some new authors, or you can browse through some genres that you haven't explored before.
How many books can I bring with me?
Oh, up to you. You can bring a whole...
As many as I can carry?
Yeah, absolutely. There's no limit.
And what if I'm there, Afsana, and I don't find another book I want to swap for?
Yeah, that's why the and more part of the event is there. So we have a couple of local vendors. We're doing sort of a fall theme. So we have a photo op set up. So shout out to the Cambridge Centers there as they donated some items. We're going to have that set up. So if you want to take a cute photo that's for Instagram or so, you can do that. You can chat up with our tarot table and, have your cards read. Why not do a fun fall-themed spooky activity? We've got some folks selling pastries. You can browse around, drink a coffee, warm beverage in your hand, and pick up some local artists' handmade goods.
I love that. This and more. When you mentioned coffee, Afsana, it reminded me a long time ago, I was working at a radio station in Thunder Bay, and I was all alone in this big city in northwestern Ontario, big enough city anyway. And I didn't have a lot going on. I didn't have a lot to do. And on my days off from the radio station, I would go to a local bookstore where they served coffee, and I'd have a couple of cups of coffee, and I'd sit in one of their big comfy chairs, and I'd just read their books.
Oh, that's a warm and fuzzy.
I loved it.
Memory.
I know. That's exactly what you brought back that memory.
That's awesome. While we're still talking about activities, I do want to mention that we're also having a live demo of how to put together your own little free library. So if you've ever been out and about and you've seen these tiny little, mailbox-looking outfits outside people's homes, and you peek inside, there's books there. So we're going to tell you all about what those are and how you can make your own. Maybe, we'll see a few more pop up around Cambridge. And in fact, we have 2 demos happening at 11:30 a.m. and 12:30 p.m. And if you're attending, you could walk away with your very own free little library to take home, paint, and put up outside your own house.
I think it's great. I love those little libraries, too. We see them all the time when we're out walking the dog. What was your inspiration for this, Afsana? Where did the idea for the book swap and more come from?
Yeah, so my sister and I, we really enjoy books. We, have that shared passion for sharing stories. We really enjoy, our genre is sort of historical fiction. And then same, my husband's really into sci-fi, so it's a nice way to connect with others, listen to them, get passionate about it. And so when the grant opportunity was advertised, and it really talked about neighborhood cohesiveness, that really inspired us to say, hey, why not get to know some more of our neighbors? And we've got a few neighbors involved with the event. They're volunteering. We've got a few kids who are going to set up sort of a drinks table as well. And so it's really sweet for our immediate neighbors to come together and support us in this. But it's a good opportunity to sort of expand out and get to know folks a bit farther out. Especially sort of the climate today, I think the region we live in is getting a bad reputation for not having that cohesiveness element. And I think we can really put that to test here and show that no matter who you are, what walk of life, you can come here and really contribute to that community spirit.
I agree completely. And what better way than to do it over books? A great idea. Afsana, thank you very much for joining the show today. And I hope it's a great book swap and more on Saturday.
Thank you for having us.
Okay, enjoy your day. Bye now.
Bye.
Afsana Tour is the organizer of this Saturday's event, Cambridge Reads, a book swap event and more. It runs from 10 until 2 at Blue Heron Public School on Grand Valley Drive in Cambridge. Take some books you want to swap, find some books to swap them for. Even if you don't find a book you want to swap for, or you don't have any books to swap, hey, there's lots of things going on through the day between 10 and 2. Just an opportunity maybe to connect with your neighborhood or your broader community, learn a little bit about little free libraries, etc., and enjoy coming together at Cambridge Reads on Saturday from 10 until 2. Love me some books. I'm still that guy, too. I've never had one of those e-reader Kindle thingamabobbies. I just want a book. Just put it in my hands and then inject it into my veins. Books and then music, and we do that every Monday, the music part, with This Week in Music History. What do you know about this week in music history? We'll fill you in with all of those details as our musicologist Brian Allison joins us next on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Sometimes it's hard to be a woman. Giving all your love to just one man. You'll have bad times and he'll have good times, doing things that you don't understand. But if you love him, you'll forgive him. even though he's hard to understand. And if you love him, oh, be proud of him, 'cause after all, he's just a man.
It is, of course, a lovely sentiment and an incredibly popular song that you recognize comes from a far different era. Tammy Wynette's Stand By Your Man, released in 1968, and will factor into, for more modern reasons, I think, our This Week in Music History look that we do every Monday morning at this time with our good friend and musicologist, Brian Allison. I remind you to check out Brian's Facebook page of the same name, This Week in Music History, to follow along with these stories and more. Good morning, Brian.
Hi, Mike.
We will get to Tammy Wynette, but I think I have to start with this one because much like when we talked about Milli Vanilli last week, and I mentioned how memorable that was, probably for the wrong reasons, Sinead O'Connor shocked all of us when she appeared on Saturday Night Live This Week in Music History back in 1992.
Oh boy!
Oh boy!
Sinead, this was definitely one of those top shocking moments in music history for sure. So it was October 3rd, 1992, and it was a scheduled Saturday Night Live appearance. Sinead was supposed to go on and play a song, and she was going to do an open dialogue, and they had rehearsed it several times. When the show aired, which of course is live, Sinead went completely off script, and after performing an a cappella rendition of Bob Marley's 1976 song War, she pulled out a photo of Pope John Paul II and proceeded to tear the photograph into pieces, stating, "Fight the real enemy," threw the pieces on the ground of the stage, and that was the end of the performance. So when asked about this, Sinead said it was a form of protest over the issues of sexual abuse in the Catholic Church. Fair enough, but at the time, NBC was not prepared for what she was going to do, and the studio audience fell silent. The show immediately went to commercials, and the phone lines lit up immediately, of course, with complaints. NBC was subsequently fined $2.5 million by the FCC for this little stunt. And, you know, you can argue Sinead's career never really recovered from this incident. She went on to, try a performing career and record more music, and never really regained the status that she had before this happened. So the public was not real happy about it. Although, interestingly enough, Time magazine named Sinead O'Connor the most influential woman of 1992 for that said protest. So interesting that they would get that spin.
No question about it. And it just resonates to this day. Like, I think it's one of those where were you when moments. You never forget that.
I remember watching it too and just kind of thinking, oh, okay, people might not really care too much for that. And I figured, I didn't realize at the time, of course, watching it live, that it wasn't something that was planned, that she went off script and the show wasn't aware that she was going to do that. So I thought, wow, that's pretty bold of Saturday Night Live to allow that.
Good,
very interesting time.
Good reminder of the faith that is put in us every Monday morning, Brian, that we will not, like, what would we have to do you think, to get this company fined $2.5 million? Let's not try to find out.
I'm still kind of shocked that they let us read the original lyrics to Tutti Frutti a couple of weeks ago, right. And we didn't get thrown off the air for that. So maybe it's not as bad as we think, Mike.
Management doesn't listen to this show, Brian. They got better things to do.
So we got carte blanche.
Exactly. Let's stay in the 90s, a year earlier, in fact. This week in 1991, a fantastic rock band with a 2-album release.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was huge. So September 28th, 1991 was when Guns N' Roses released Use Your Illusions 1 and Use Your Illusion 2. Two massive records that debuted at number 2 and number 1, respectively. And on both sides of the U.S., both sides of the Atlantic, in the U.S. and the U.K. album chart. So this was huge. A band hadn't really gone the route of, okay, let's put out a double album. No, let's put out 2 double albums on the same day. Pretty impressive stuff. And the material was there to warrant it. You know, there was a lot of hit singles on those 2 records. November Rain, they covered Wings, Live and Let Die. They had You Could Be Mine from the Terminator 2 soundtrack, of course. Bob Dylan's Knocking on Heaven's Door, which was a great version of that song. So, yeah, this sort of really launched Guns N' Roses into the next level of their career. And I think for a moment there, they were arguably probably the biggest band on the planet during Use Your Illusions 1 and 2. I saw the tour that year in Toronto, and it was spectacular. They were a great live band, for sure. Some interesting trivia, their follow-up didn't really take hold. So it would take Guns N' Roses 17 years to record a follow-up to Use Your Illusions 1 and 2, which would become, of course, the ill-fated Chinese Democracy album.
Oh, my gosh. I almost forgot all about it.
Yes, and that album cost $13 million to produce, took 17 years to produce. The only member of Guns N' Roses that was even on it was Axl Rose. All the other band members were dismissed by that time. And it didn't do very well. It sold about 615,000 copies initially. Eventually, it would become more of a novelty and sell a couple of million copies globally. But, yeah, certainly Guns N' Roses went from probably the biggest band in the land to where is the next album for almost 2 decades.
All right. Also, on This Week in Music History, back in 1983, a song that everybody knows went to number 1 on the charts. And I would have liked to have played it to start our segment today, but I think we'd still be waiting to get to the chorus. That's how much of an opera this one particular song is. But I think I'm confident when I say everybody loves this song.
Well, it was pretty epic in 1983. So, Total Eclipse of the Heart, Bonnie Tyler became the first Welsh artist to top the Billboard 100, which, I was kind of surprised at. I was like, in Wales, they didn't have any other artists before that topped, but I guess she was the first one to top the Billboard 100 with the hit Total Eclipse of the Heart. It originally clocked in, just over 7 minutes, which at the time was pretty long for a radio song. They did shorten it to 4 minutes and 30 seconds for a radio-friendly version. Do you know who wrote that song? I didn't know this. This was something that I learned this week, too.
I'm pretty sure I do. I think it was Meatloaf's buddy Jim Steinman, wasn't it?
You're correct.
Yeah.
There you go, Mike. Give that man a prize. Yeah, Jim Steinman. And when you listen to the song, you kind of go, oh yeah, that really does sound like
exactly
Jim Steinman composition. But at the time, I didn't realize that it was Jim Steinman that had written it. So there you go. Pretty impressive.
It's incredibly impressive. All right. We're going to take a break. Before we do, and I don't want to get into the full story yet, Brian, but we started with Tammy Wynette's and Stand By Your Man this morning. And, did it sound a little cringy to you? Or is that just me? I love Tammy Wynette, and I get it was 1968, but when I was listening to it this morning, I thought, I don't know. In 2025, I'm not so sure that this plays anymore. Maybe that was just me. I don't know.
I think you're right, and I think some women's group would certainly argue that maybe this song hasn't aged as well. And interesting too, we can get into that after. When you know Tammy Wynette's history, she definitely had some partners that were not worth standing by at the time, and she had this theme song to live up to. So it's an interesting connection.
It is indeed. Okay, we will get into that with Brian Allison, our good friend and musicologist, who joins us every Monday morning at 11 for This Week in Music History. And don't forget the Facebook page of the same name, This Week in Music History. Follow along, and we will get to, I don't know, it sounded a little bit cringy. I think Brian nailed it when he said it didn't exactly age well. And the irony is known as we get into that story and more. Continuing This Week in Music History this morning on the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Every Monday morning at 11, we take a look back at This Week in Music History with our good friend and musicologist, Brian Allison. Couple of big names from music history featured this week, Brian, in both Jerry Lee Lewis and Bob Dylan. Let's start with Jerry Lee in 1976. In fact, on this day in 1976.
Wow, Jerry Lee had himself a birthday party. So this occurred at his management office. So it was his birthday, September 29th, 1976. He was at his management office. Very intoxicated, Jerry Lee Lewis decided to, celebrate his birthday by brandishing a pistol and began shooting holes in the office door that he was standing next to. Unbeknownst to him, the bass player in his band, Norman Owens, was standing in the next room behind the door, and he accidentally shot his bass player Owens in the chest. Fortunately, Norman Owens survived that gunshot, but of course he later sued his boss, Jerry Lee, for the shot, and Jerry Lee was taken to jail that day, spent the remainder of his birthday in the slammer. So maybe not the best choices for a birthday celebration by the artist that we always refer to as the killer anyways.
Well played, sir. Well played. Yeah, he was, he could make some music. He could play that piano. He was an eccentric dude, Jerry Lee Lewis was. All right, let's look back this week in 1965 and pay attention to the names that Bob Dylan used or put together in his touring band. My goodness, what a who's who here.
Well, I mean, it's just, it's epic. You can't even imagine. So Bob had decided that he was going to go electric at some point along in his career. He was going to move away from the acoustic sounds and move to a more electric sound, and he needed a band for that. And he had a show to do at Carnegie Hall in New York City, which was a pretty big deal for Bob. So he decided to have a backup band made up of a band that was previous. Previously, they had been recording in Canada and backing up Ronnie Hawkins. So this band was made up of Robbie Robertson, Garth Hudson, Rick Danko, and Richard Manuel, and drummer Levin Helm from the USA. So 4 Canadians and an American fellow made up this backing up band, which Bob just referred to as the band. He introduced them as the band. And, a little while after that tour, which was very successful, those said musicians, 4 Canadians and 1 American, said, you know what, we should maybe make some of our own music. And they recorded some albums that became critical successes and commercial successes. And of course, what are they going to call themselves but the band?
Absolutely.
So that's how the band became the band. The argument has always been, is this a Canadian band? Can we call this a Canadian band? 4 Canadian guys and 1 American guy?
I think we can. We should. Absolutely.
I think we claim them. I don't care what anybody says. And they started off in Canada as a backup for Ronnie Hawkins, 1958. So to me, that means they're a Canadian band.
And if I remember my music radio days well enough and what qualifies as CanCon, Canadian content, it's on the MAPLE principle: music, artist, production, lyrics, to spell maple without the E. And only one of those 4 boxes had to be checked, and it was CanCon. So if 4 of the 5 band members, that's Canadian. Come on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Totally. Canadian band. So I say, there are still Americans will say, well, they're not really Canadian because of Levon Helm. But I'm like, no, come on. It's a Canadian band.
I'm with you, 100%. Okay. And finally, let's get around to Tammy Wynette and the irony. Oh, the irony, the Stand By Your Man singer. And as you said, the song probably doesn't stand up too well. But on this week in 1978, we really understand why.
Well, and I really wish there was more closure in this story. I really wish we had, a definitive answer of what happened. But it was October 1st, 1978, and Tammy Wynette, who was obviously a very well-established country singer at the time, showed up at a police station an hour outside her home in Nashville in distress. She was covered with bruises on her body, and she had a broken cheekbone. And her claim was that she'd been abducted, beaten, and held in a car for 2 hours by a kidnapper wearing a ski mask. She claimed the assailant held a gun to her head and forced her to drive 90 miles from her home, where she was just then released and the kidnapper fled. Law enforcement investigated, but there really wasn't much to go on. The guy was wearing a mask. She couldn't identify him, and he let her go. So they didn't really have much to go on. So the case went cold. But years later, And of course, the media caught hold of this, and it was like this whole story. Wow, Tammy Wynette was abducted, and thank God she was let go. But years later, after Tammy Wynette had passed away in 1998, her daughter wrote in her own memoir that her mother had privately admitted to her that the kidnapping story was not true, and that she had done this thing to basically cover up incidents of domestic violence from her then husband, which was a guy named George Ritchie. So to date, her family and friends remain divided over whether this alleged abduction occurred. So we're not really sure if this actually happened. You know, she claims that she was abducted and beaten, and this is why she had bruises and a broken cheekbone. But then her family members, some of them are saying, well, yeah, but she was in this abusive relationship. And back in 1978, I don't know how comfortable she was feeling about outing her abuser. So maybe she invented this story to, you know, put people off. Why are you, covered with bruises, and why do you have a broken cheekbone? Well, I was abducted. How tragic. So, yeah, and when you look at the context of her most famous song, which is arguably Stand By Your Man, maybe that's in fact what she did.
Yeah, and much to her later regret, I am certain, if indeed that's the case. And it does seem, I mean, even just thinking of the rather tall tale of being abducted by somebody wearing a ski mask who a couple hours later releases you. Yeah, you're probably. I tend to land on the side of this was an abusive partner that she didn't want to expose at the time.
I agree. It seems a little unusual. I mean, that somebody would just abduct her for 90 minutes and then walk away without. She wasn't even robbed of her belongings. She had a purse with her. The guy didn't even take her purse or her wallet, so he just took her in a car, punched her in the face a few times, drove her 90 minutes away, and then just said, "I'm leaving. Bye." I don't know what the motivation for such thing would be, other than the guy was a psychopath. But it just seems, the fact that she was in an abusive relationship during that time period, it seems like that might have been what she was covering up, sadly. And to think that she didn't have anything else that she could do in that moment makes me a little bit sad.
Yeah, I'm with you 100% on that, for sure. Always a fun trip down a musical memory lane with you, Brian. Thank you once again for being here this morning.
You bet, Mike. I'll talk to you next Monday.
Look forward to it. Bye-bye.
Okay, see ya.
Brian Allison is a musicologist. He joins us every Monday morning at 11 for a look at this week in music history. And you can follow along a Facebook page of the same name, This Week in Music History, and get all kinds of little musical tidbits there. Stand by your man until he stops acting like one, and then kick him to the curb, if I can put a more modern spin on the Tammy Wynette story. Brian Allison joins us Monday mornings, 11 o'clock, for This Week in Music History. Something else we do every Monday, well, rant or rave, our Talkback Hour from noon until 1 is reserved on Mondays in keeping with tradition for your rants and or raves. So that's coming up in just over 30 minutes. But at 11:30 every Monday, David Drewe joins us for Drewe's Views. And isn't it an interesting time for our new Prime Minister? Mark Carney is facing his share of challenges right now, isn't he? Not the least of which is Canada Post. Oh, yeah, then you've got that minister dissing the gun buyback program that he's in charge of administering. And, oh, yeah, by the way, about those budget numbers, you heard what the parliamentary budget officer had to say about them, right? So start stocking up on the canned goods and whatnot. David Drewe joins us with Drewe's Views next on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Has anybody heard from Crazy Dave? Has anybody heard from Crazy Dave? Has anybody heard from Crazy Dave? Now that cat couldn't spell to win a bet, but he carried this battered notebook full of his poetry. More soul per square word than the Lord's Prayer. He was the kind of guy that called a spade a shovel, and a violin a fiddle, and a lady ma'am. And I don't even know why I think of him now. Maybe because he never told me a lie he'd have to apologize for later. Because he'd speak to a guy straight, eyeball to bloodshot eyeball, like he'd never even had a secret.
David Drewe is the owner of Negotiating Change, where you'll get support with government relations and stakeholder engagement strategies. David is also a former Conservative Party staffer, and he joins us Monday mornings at 11:30 to share with us his views on this segment we appropriately call Drewe's Views. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, because the Prime Minister has his hands full. And I do mean full. Like, they are spread out like he's giving a bear hug to somebody, and he can still barely hold all of the things that he is currently responsible for.
He's a very impressive juggler. And I'm not saying that as a diss. I am saying that he has a whole lot of very fragile, very important balls in the air right now. And wow.
Let's start with Canada Post. Perhaps the most recent ball to be elevated into the air.
Well, let's put this one in the category A, where he's channeling his inner conservative. Canada Post is on strike because they have been given a new mandate by the government that, well, they're going to maintain a legal monopoly on door-to-door mail delivery and choose not to exercise it, is basically the way it's going to work. But I say this is his inner tarper because in 2015, the class of 2015, the Liberals in this area will remember demonizing the Conservatives for this exact idea and saying that, no, it was not necessary to end door-to-door mail delivery. And here we are now 10 years later, and I just come down to, well, if it wasn't for Mark Carney, would they have seen the problem ever? And boy, do we have to always let something become a major, major crisis before we try to fix things? So Canada Post, let's put that in the Harper category, where he has something major, major to deal with, and he's going down the right flank on it with, like saying, let's cut down this Crown Corporation, and has picked a major fight with unions as a result.
Okay, so on guns, is he channeling his inner Justin Trudeau? Because he's got a public safety minister that is caught on tape, so to speak, essentially saying the gun buyback program is useless, and yet Mark Carney is still boldly plunging ahead.
And I don't know that Mark Carney ever tried to make it seem like this gun buyback program was something of his as opposed to just a continuation of what came before. So this is the Trudeau category. But right down to the point where in that conversation that was taped, the minister acknowledges that he really wasn't around for the design of this. This was all going back months and months and years before Mark Carney. So yeah, in this case, you have the government following through on the Trudeau agenda, a minister saying it's not going to work. But again, just like that last situation, the hardest part of politics is keeping the main thing the main thing. And the main thing is neither Canada Post nor guns. It's Trump. And they are both significant wedge issues. If you're somebody of an age who is about to lose their home mail delivery, which is a lot fewer than people think, this is a big issue to you. If you are a gun owner or somebody who is, I'm going to say, paranoid about gun violence, the gun issue is big to you. And neither of these are the things that Mark Carney wants to be talking about, but they are potentially divisive. And we've got a few others going on too, Mike.
What do you think he does want to be talking about, out of curiosity?
I think he'd like to be talking about economic competitiveness and stronger alliances. Like, mainly, it's that whole stronger Canada, from defense to internal trade to productivity. It's we've got to start eating our spinach a little bit more and showing the benefits of the Popeye you get from eating your spinach. That's what he wants to be doing. And we'll come back in a little bit in a way to that. But yeah, he wants to be talking about not guns. But for some reason, he put this forward exactly as was.
All right, one of the other issues, and I confess to having a very difficult time with it because I keep hearing it getting invoked. It's being used more and more often, but I'm not. I'm just not a superior court judge in this country, and I can't really understand the notwithstanding clause. So maybe you can help a little bit in that regard. But this is another another issue that Mark Carney has in those wide stretched arms that he's trying to bear hug together here and hold it together.
Okay, so as contentious as those other two issues we just covered are, I'm willing to bet that if any of these balls drop, it's going to be this one. Because the minister responsible for this is the same one who brought us all the success the previous government had on the housing file and managed to actually break our confidence in the immigration system. The Attorney General who's putting this forward has a history of mismanaging files. This guy was not going to run again to spend more time with his family, and changing his mind, I think, was really bad for Canadians.
Sean Fraser is the minister you're talking about, yeah.
But the notwithstanding clause, to just break it down in the dumbest down way possible, it's Section 33 of the Constitution, and it allows governments to overrule certain sections of the Constitution, mainly the ones that emerged new in the Charter of Rights that hadn't pre-existed. And it's been getting used a lot. All of a sudden, it's getting a lot of attention. But we have to remember that for the first 15 years of the Charter, every piece of legislation that came out of the province of Quebec started with notwithstanding. They just it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. But now we've got this icky case in Quebec where they are doing really, really jerky things.
They just really jerky.
Really jerky things.
The religious symbol thing.
Yeah.
So you cannot wear, if you are an employee of the government, which includes teachers, for example.
Bingo.
You cannot wear a religious symbol in class, which would mean a cross around your neck. I think it does.
Well, see, that's just it. I do believe that the way it's phrased, it's like Christians can get away with it.
I don't know.
It's like a small piece of jewelry is okay.
But the hijab is not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like anything it's one of those qualitative definitions of ostentatious or da-da-da. So, your little crucifix you can get away with.
Well, what if my hijab is just white instead of colorful?
Oh, but it's big.
Okay.
That's just it. I don't know, but that's just it.
David.
And then the other problem with it is it's a bunch of racists who are interpreting the law. So now that I've gotten us all sued, so everybody is finding this really heinous. No party, not the NDP, not the Liberals, not the Conservatives during the last election talked about this at all. Nobody was touching this with a 10-foot pole while votes in Quebec were at stake. But now we have some governments intervening. And one of the things the federal government wants is to put a cap on how often you can do this. So you can't do it 5 years and 5 years and 5 years. And it's one thing for the courts to rewrite the Constitution, but it's totally different to ask them, to interpret the Constitution. It's another thing to ask them to rewrite it. And we have the Parti Québécois leading in Quebec right now in an election coming. We have a burgeoning Alberta nationalist movement. I'm not going to call that a separatist movement because the separatist part of it is a joke. But the nationalist part of it is not a joke. And they could easily become separatists if they feel their only protection from the Ottawa elite Laurentian consensus courts is being pulled out of by the courts. It would be like you going to your boss and saying, you know what you should think about? Giving yourself more powers to overrule your bosses. And they're looking at you going, Mike, that's a pretty good idea. If there is a horribly complicated, convoluted conversation going on between Parliament and the courts in any society, and you can't have one outrageously in charge of the other. So I think Wab Kinu's position on this is pretty neat, where he's like, no. I just want the courts to be able to say it's unconstitutional, even if you invoke the notwithstanding clause. So the voters have the benefit of knowing when they cast judgment on you. And to me, that's like a very fair way, because I want to know if something's unconstitutional. But if the good people of Quebec decide to look at their racist law, find out their racist law is unconstitutional, and a bunch of racists decide that they want to keep it in place anyway, that's their God-given democratic right.
I'll tell you, it's a hornet's nest. Okay, real quick before the break. You want to make a mom joke today?
Pierre Poilievre's mom came up in question period, and it was, I don't want to say cute, but for question period, it was quite cute and adorable. And I forget who was the first one to respond with a reference back to his mother. But Pierre Poilievre's mother came up so many times during that question period. And first of all, to politicians, okay, if you're not the first one making the little quip, chances are it's not going to be funny. You're just a bandwagon jumper with a meme, and it's not going to be good at all. So don't do it because the risk is not worth it. That being said, not one Yo Mama joke came out.
Come on.
Seriously.
You're not even trying.
Well, no, but that's just it. They're at this point in Parliament Like, I can't imagine during question period back right before Trudeau prorogued, if somebody had invoked their mother in Parliament, I can't imagine what would have happened. So, we do have some hope for society is all I wanted to say about that little exchange.
All right. David Drewe joins us every Monday morning, 11:30, with Drewe's Views. Stock up on those canned goods because the budget ain't going to be pretty. And as you know, it pays not to be a political enemy of Donald Trump. We'll continue Drew's Views here on the Mike Farwell Show this morning, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. On Monday mornings at 11:30, former Conservative Party staffer and current head of negotiating change, government relations, and stakeholder engagement strategies, David Drewe joins us for Drew's Views. I'm not even sure he's done yet with Kimmel, David, maybe for the time being, but Donald Trump can take aim at multiple opponents at the same time. So make room on your Kimmel plate for Comey.
Yeah. Former head of the FBI, who actually was the first one, if I recall correctly, to bring up the idea of Hillary having trouble because of her emails in their storage. So at first, Trump kind of liked the guy. But then Comey started looking at possible Russian support for the Donald Trump campaign, and he ended up on the, let's call it, the enemies list. I'm pretty sure that Trump is the first president since Nixon who literally has an enemies list. So in his first term, Trump was trying to find his Department of Justice, the Attorney General, trying to find somebody who would prosecute Comey because, darn it, he's a bad guy. So he ended up firing an attorney general over this, and another one just couldn't quite get around to getting it done. Then Trump loses the election. Now he comes back, and I forget this, not the district attorney, but anyway, somebody else quits because they're not going to prosecute this case. So in comes the new appointee, a former lawyer of Trump's who has tried in her career a total of 2 cases.
Oh, so she's got a lot of experience then.
Yeah, she's
It's kind of like Vinny in My Cousin Vinny.
That honestly, I'm picturing that as the best case scenario because My Cousin Vinny had problems with the etiquette of the South. He was not actually incompetent because we're going to get to some incompetence right now. So she can't find any of the career lawyers in her department to prosecute this case. So she ends up taking it on herself. And, as I said, the U.S., they say you can indict a ham sandwich because but the process for indictment is so easy compared to a trial. An indictment does no indication of guilt. You need in this case, it was 14 of 23 jurors felt like it was worth pursuing. And, at that, there's no defense. It's just the prosecution side. But somehow the magistrate, as she's giving out the indictment, is like, but why do I have 2 copies of the indictment in front of me that aren't the same as each other? And they're both signed by the jury's foreperson. And, you can't blame the jury. They just signed what was put in front of them. But I guess, there had been a few drafts of what she was planning to file as an indictment. Somehow several of them got signed and ended up with the jury. So, it was easily straightened out. But at one point, the judge is like, so where did this come from? And she's like, I've never seen that before in my life. And then 2 minutes later, after dragging her down the garden path of letting her, so why is your signature on it then? Now, just the last footnotes to this is Trump actually, in a now deleted post on X, directed his attorney general to start prosecuting people and specifically named like Comey. So there's a good chance that this is just going to get thrown out right there. But I really am kind of hoping it doesn't in a way because I want to see how many other big bloody mistakes this woman can make. Because seriously, it's like the gang that couldn't shoot straight.
All right. I want to make sure we have enough time before you go to address what we heard from the interim parliamentary budget officer last week, because holy moly, if you were even a little bit concerned about the state of Canada's finances before, you should be downright terrified now, in my opinion.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Unsustainable. That was the word he used. And then he went on to explain that unsustainable meant that if you do not soon change course, this will fall apart. Soon. This is urgent. This isn't the books are in kind of bad shape. It's like we are heading for that iceberg.
Right.
I'm not sure that it really matters right now. Like, I don't understand what we can do to change course. We have to take on much of this debt right now. Was it $400 million today to Algoma Steel? Yeah.
I think 5, actually.
Well, okay.
Yeah, it says right here. Algoma still gets $500 million in government loans, maybe some from the province.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. 400 and 100?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. But yeah. Well, what's $500 million right now to try and keep that industry together while we are, like, our defense spending? Are we just going to say we're not going to do that anymore? Like, all of these things we have to do. The problem is not that we have to take on all these things. It's all the money we've wasted along the way. And again, I'm not going to complain about the COVID spending. I think a lot of it could have been done better, but on the timeline we had, they did okay, and we needed to spend the money. You know, one thing I would have done, I would have made the CERB taxable and given out more of it, and then so many of these fraud questions of did you qualify or not would just get sorted with your T4. Boom, done. But yeah, it was the spending before COVID that I was always really, really grouchy about. All this gratuitous, we're not funding healthcare properly, but we're going to set up dental programs and childcare, and no, let's stick to our knitting. But now here we are, and we have all these things that basic countries need to do, and we are looking at we can't afford it, perhaps. Like, we are finally getting to the point of we need to focus on what's important, and we can't afford to anymore.
Right. And this is what concern you. I love what you just said, stick to your knitting. This is what has concerned me for a long time, because we have the whole ball of yarn, not just what's being knit.
No, but also 10 years from now, the people who need senior support are not going to be the huge majority of voters that they are right now. And when that next generation who can't afford a house and hasn't been able to get their career started, are they going to be wanting to contribute to CPP the way they are now? Are all of these, because I'm sorry, I love me my seniors, but too many seniors benefits have no means testing at all. And that's not going to keep going. So a whole lot of people of our generation who were actually planning on that, it's not going to be that.
It honestly scares me. And only so much of that is going to come down in intergenerational wealth passed down to another generation. Anyway, we'll have to leave it there. Thanks for scaring the bejeepers out of me just before you leave. But always happy to see you on Monday mornings. Thank you for this.
Oh, Ziggy, will you ever win?
David Drewe owns Negotiating Change, Government Relations, Stakeholder Engagement Strategies, and he's a former Conservative Party staffer joining us Monday mornings at 11:30 for Drewe's Views. Maybe that shivered your timbers, that talk about the unsustainability of our federal finances. Maybe something else is on your mind entirely. We had the whole indoctrination versus education conversation earlier today. And of course, those Blue Jays, Rant or Rave is coming up on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Take out the papers and the trash, or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Just finish cleaning up your room. Let's see that dust fly with that broom. Get all that garbage out of sight, or you don't go out Friday night. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
I just saw a post on our Facebook page, facebook.com/The Mike Farwell Show, that says it's very difficult to find the number to call your show. It's on the Facebook page, just so you know, the number. And I repeat the numbers often on this show, so often that I get chirped sometimes for saying them too much. But in the interests of ensuring that I am very clear about the ways to get in touch with this show. Social media, by all means, you can do that. Send an email, mike@570news.com. But the very best way, because I very much enjoy talking to you, is through a phone call. 519-570-2545. That's the number in town. You can do it by cell at star 570 or long distance toll free 1-800-570-5715. And the pro tip that I like to offer is if you try one of those numbers and you can't get through, try one of the other ones, because the phone lines do tend to get busy, but you can sometimes sneak in on the number that you're not dialing in the moment. Our phone lines are already very busy. So I'm going to get right to the calls because it's your Monday afternoon to rant or rave here on the Talkback Hour. And Mayor Jake is going to start us off. Good afternoon, sir.
Mike, how are you now?
I'm good, and you?
Not so bad, thanks. Yeah, I was listening earlier when you were saying about Wilfrid Laurier not playing a national anthem. I'm like, I can say that I'm not completely and totally surprised at that. About 3 years ago, I went and I was playing a gig at Wilfrid Laurier, and I snuck into a lecture room where they had somebody talking about Indigenous treatment and so on and so forth. So they opened that you can ask a question. So I decided to ask one, and the person said, "Well, you're not allowed to ask that question because it's hurtful. It's a hurtful question." And you know, I'm a person that likes to ask or challenge the rhetoric or challenge what they're saying, because that's the best way for me to learn, is to hear what they have to say about it. And it wasn't even a bad question. They were talking about how they weren't taught any farming. And I said, well, Mennonites and people who are Amish can farm. And I said, so where's the justification for that statement? And then, you know, I was told I wasn't allowed to ask any more questions because of what I said. So I find that I'm not completely surprised that these universities are trying to silence people for challenging that rhetoric.
Mayor Jake, appreciate the call and the story. And it has become, I don't understand how we got here, if I'm being honest, and that decisions are being made seemingly for political reasons on our campuses, or a political direction is chosen and then we motor down that path. If anywhere, it should be our post-secondary campuses that are the freest of places for all manner of thought. We're bringing people into these spaces to help them get ready for the world that they are going to enter after graduation. And it is a complicated world. There are many layers to it. And we really ought be very aware of the freedom of our expression and the sharing of ideas. We must do that because, you know, you could be in a classroom with somebody that thinks differently or sees the world differently than you do, and you can learn from them. Just like you might move into a neighborhood, or in these days, a condominium tower where the person in the next unit to you sees the world differently, and you can learn from them. When you go to the grocery store, the convenience store, the fast food restaurant, wherever you are, your workplace, always have an opportunity to learn from the perspective of somebody else. And if that person is not allowed to speak their perspective, the hell are you going to learn? I asks myself and you at the same time. Jersey Bill, you're next on Rant or Rave. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. And I just want to balance my previous negative comments with more positive things. And it's going to be about sports. And, you said that I might be a New York Yankees fan. That was my dad, William Sr. I'm William Jr., and I'm a Blue Jays fan.
Attaboy, Billy.
But what I really find interesting is not just the Toronto Blue Jays with great players like Davis Schneider is someone who's coming from my state, New Jersey, but I believe one of the goalies on the Kitchener Rangers is also a Jersey person.
Oh boy, I feel like I should know this, Billy, and off the top of my head, it doesn't strike me. I don't know that there's a New Jersey native as one of our goaltenders. Shame on me.
as they were being announced, and I was I was watching you, but also watching the TV. But I was listening to TV because I think you guys also were doing it. So I was actually hearing it over the radio while I was watching TV. And I think somebody said there was someone from East Caldwell, New Jersey, which is up in Essex County.
Okay, East Caldwell, I might not have recognized as much as New Jersey itself, but I'm just going through. I don't see an East Caldwell on here.
Maybe I heard that wrong. But
Okay.
I thought definitely I heard that somebody had come, but somebody on the roster is from New Jersey. But certainly David Schneider is, and I think Lopafito maybe as well. There were a couple of New Jersey guys that are on the Toronto Blue Jays, but of course David Schneider is the most prominent, and he's a great player. He comes from that. It doesn't come from the area. Jersey's small, but he comes more from the area around where Dixon McGuire is, which is the military base I was stationed at, South Jersey, which also had Mike Trout and come from that area. So it seems to be something in the water that makes pretty decent baseball players.
All right, Billy, I appreciate it. We're pulling for our Blue Jays, and much like our Kitchener Rangers, who come from all kinds of places other than the city of Kitchener, but they put on the sweater of our favorite team and they become our native sons, and in some cases with sports daughters as well. In this case, we're talking about the Blue Jays and our native sons from, listen, they put on the Blue Jay uniform and they say nice things like, who was it that talked about how much he's enjoyed Toronto and how much the fans know there when those Baltimore Orioles broadcasters said those dumb things. I'm sorry for forgetting which Blue Jay it was. But anyway, you represent our city. You are our country's team, and we're loving the Blue Jays right now. Even Grant loves the Blue Jays right now. I know it. Right, Grant?
Yeah, especially that...
Alejandro Kirk.
Well, someone must have told him...
to eat his Wheaties.
To get your butt into gear, because that last time that he was at bat with that other team that we played against, it was like he was going for his daily summer walk. Like, you gotta.
I'll tell you what, Grant. I'll tell you what. I would like you, please, to pick up a baseball bat. I don't know what the minimum requirement is for a baseball bat's weight, but you can choose the lightest bat that you're allowed to use. And then I want you to stand in the batter's box, and I want you to face a major league pitcher and see how you do.
Well, he really didn't move that fast. That not during this series, but it was.
You're not being very specific here.
Sorry?
You're not being very specific. I like you're saying Alejandro Kirk did not hustle down to first after he hit the ball, or what?
Not tonight. Not. It was the other series against that other team.
See, the other series, again, Grant, you're just not being specific enough for me. And the reason I've got my back up a little bit, I'll tell you, because my buddy Joe was emailing over the weekend about what a waste of money Vladimir Guerrero Jr. was. And I went back at him with actual data that he's top 10 in all of these offensive categories and top 3 in this one. And I love his defensive play. And Joe just kept going on. What a waste of money, blah, blah, blah. What is, the team just won the ding-dang pennant. And frankly, I wouldn't have cared if Alejandro Kirk crawled around the bases yesterday because he hit the ball out of the park. So you can do the home run trot or crawl however you want. Why don't we try, just for a moment, to focus on the pennant that was just clinched? How about that? Andre, over to you on Rant or Rave. Good afternoon.
Come on now with your come on now.
Come on with your coming on.
I love you, Mike.
Thanks, buddy.
I have a rant and a rave. My rant is those guys that I heard on the news there this morning. 4 guys. And
2 guys, a girl, and a pizza place? What 4 guys? What are you talking about?
I think it was on Highland and Belmont. There was 4 guys walking. There was an altercation with a driver, and they scratched her car, and blah blah blah.
Okay.
But anyway, the point is that those 4 people, they should go in a jail box.
Jackwagon jail. You're going to put them in Jackwagon jail, Andre?
Hell yeah.
Okay, I like it. We got more room in Jackwagon jail. You can put people in there. Unlimited supply of cells.
Right?
Yes.
And my rave You know it. Tanner Lamb.
Tanner Lamb. All right, Andre. 2 more goals for Tanner Lamb on Friday night when the Rangers beat the Erie Otters. On Saturday night, the Rangers were less successful. They lost 5-2 up in Owen Sound. But, hey, our Kitchener Rangers are off to a 3-1 start. And since Andre brought up the Rangers, I'm just going to put this little bug in your ear, okay? Friday night, you might want to consider joining us at the Kitchener Memorial Auditorium. I mean, we'll broadcast the game here on 570 News Radio because we're your home of Rangers hockey. But, I think you could do a lot worse than a ticket to the game on Friday night because we get to play Owen Sound again. And that game on Saturday up in Owen Sound was pretty feisty. And I think the Kitchener Rangers would like to return the favor, shall we say, to Owen Sound when Owen Sound comes to our barn. You're coming, hey, Owen Sound, you're coming to Kitchener on Friday, pals. Let's go. You might want to join us at the Odd for the game. Just an idea. Put it out there for you. Rant or Rave continues on the Mike Farwell Show this afternoon, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. On Mondays, your Talkback Hour is the Rant or Rave edition because we've got a long history with this particular hour on this specific day here on the radio station. So you get to rant because something has you upset, or you get to rave because something is making you smile on this Monday afternoon. Back to the phones. Sherry, good afternoon.
Oh, good afternoon, Mike. I'm the other half of Francis.
Oh, Sherry, bless your Listowellian heart. Good afternoon.
I don't have my own number, but that's okay. I'll be under his umbrella.
Okay, wait a minute. Where's Francis? Let me see here.
He's 36.
Farwell's Force member number 36. I got him right there. Sherry, you are more than welcome to share that number with Francis.
Okay. I have a rave and then a rant. The rave is congrats to the Blue Jays. They've had such an incredible season, and no matter what happens going forward, I'm so proud of them.
I'm with you on that, Sherry, and I'm pretty excited because I get to go to the game on Saturday, so I'm super pumped.
Good for you. And my rant is more of an opinion.
Sure.
But the fellow that called in from the university this morning, Laurier?
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, I agreed with a lot he had to say. You know, for us older folks, we grew up with the God Save the Queen and saying the Lord's Prayer in schools, and all of that had to be abandoned. And Francis and I are very much into acknowledging all races, all creeds, and standing up for their rights. But the government is slowly impeding on all of our rights by not allowing certain things and putting force on those that are in leadership to, not allow a number of things. So I think it's purely political, and that's kind of my opinion.
All right, Sherry. Well, thanks for sharing it today.
Okay. God bless.
Bye-bye. Thank you. God bless. We talked this morning with a professor from Wilfrid Laurier University, one of almost 24, who wrote an open letter to administration at Wilfrid Laurier University when, back at the convocation in the spring at Laurier, the national anthem was not part of the ceremony. Everything else remained intact, but for some reason the anthem was not a part of it. And these members of the Wilfrid Laurier University faculty sensed this was a political decision. And I would raise an eyebrow as well in asking the question or wondering what the political motivation would have been for not making the anthem, the national anthem of our country, a part of the ceremony as it had always been. I recognize the most dangerous words in the English language are, well, we've always done it this way. So maybe it was time for a change. But interestingly, after raising the question through the open letter, administration at Wilfrid Laurier University has simply said the anthem will be reinstated for convocation ceremonies this October, so next month. But there was no explanation as to why the anthem was removed from the ceremony back in June. And I think that's a question, quite frankly, the school should answer. And that took us into a much broader conversation around the freedom of our speech. Are we allowing for or developing critical thinking skills at schools, etc.? Anyway, interesting conversation. Sherry shared her opinion on it, and maybe you want to as well, or maybe there's something else on your mind. Dallas, Farwell's Force, member number 30, next on Rant or Rave. Good afternoon.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
How are you now?
I'm all right, thank you. And you?
Well, I got to say the East Avenue Blue are off to a wonderful start.
I like a 3-1 record myself. Yes, sir.
Right? And, hopefully they keep it up. Good luck to the Blue Jays. I don't know how they're going to fare out, but all we can do is hope for the best. Other than that, it's just a wonderful day, nice and sunny outside, and let's just leave it at that.
All right, Dallas, I appreciate it. I love that. Like, I don't really have a rant or a rave. I've just got a few thoughts bouncing around in my mind, and I'm going to leave it on. Isn't this a nice day? That's the water cooler stuff. That's what our open line hour is all about. It's like we're gathering around the water cooler at our workplace. If you actually go to a workplace, I'm still shocked at the people complaining and kvetching about going back to their workplaces. In person, I mean. Anyway, Bill, you're next on Rant or Rave. Good afternoon.
Hey, Mike. Yeah, I just want to say go Rangers and go Jays.
I can get behind both of those things, Billy.
Yeah, fantastic. And I was going to mention for those people in Lincoln Village. I live out in the Dune area, and we had a similar situation like over the last 5 years kind of thing. It's tough to get answers on how the city councilors will react, but I'm there was nothing for us to really get. We've got another subdivision going in now on the other side of our property, and it's the same thing. It was a very similar story to what we heard from the people in the Lincoln Village situation. But I wonder if you can get on, like either Christine was very instrumental with us. She was very sympathetic, but she couldn't really do anything. And I was wondering if you can get a counselor on to actually speak from the other side of the table, like either like Rob Deutschman or Brian Burke or even Christine, because she's going through it right now with some more groups in the Dune area.
I'm trying to understand where you're coming from here. Like, what do you mean a counselor from the other side of the situation? Somebody that voted against the development, or?
No, that is sympathetic to the residents that are, because Christine came out to our house even. We sat down, had, a visitation, and she went around the property, was very instrumental in going back to the city and saying, yeah, let's talk about this. But nothing could be done, and there was no answers back from the other people in the city council. Like, we tried to get a hold of Mayor Barry. Nothing said. We didn't even hear back from him as a group of citizens for the housing complex. But we had those meetings at the beginning where they send out a notification saying this is put in for a proposal. Then they put in what they're going to put in to, as far as housing. Then it can change at any time, even after they give you a final summation of what they're going to do. And where the final summation came out to us, along the one side of our property, we were going to have 2 homes, but then we ended up with 6 and some higher-rised buildings on the other side of the road.
All right. Listen, for the sake of time, I got to get moving here, Bill. And that last part would surprise me, that there was a final summation given to you and it changed after that. Seems like there's a missing piece there for sure. But I'll get into the conversation that prompted Bill's call and his concern and share with you where you can find more information, because these are the things that are happening in our backyards, and we got to stay on top of them, and we should get answers about them. We continue Rant or Rave on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Just quickly back to Bill's call before the break. I had to get to the news center, and I even made Matt a little late. Sorry about that, Hutch. But Bill was talking about a group that we had on, a couple members of the group, on the show earlier today. It's about 50 residents in the Lincoln Heights area of Waterloo, and they have come together to form what they call Eyes on Waterloo. Reason for it, a decision that council made in their neighborhood in Lincoln Heights has not exactly gone over well with residents in the neighborhood today, and they're not sure they're getting the level of transparency they would like from Waterloo City Council. So Eyes on Waterloo is going to be a group that does just that. They're going to follow council meetings, share information amongst the residents group, etc., and keep their eyes on the goings-on at City Hall, which is something that I can really get behind. I mean, this is the stuff. This is the bread and butter stuff that happens in our neighborhoods. So to Bill's call earlier, if you would like to start something similar in your neighborhood, the Eyes on Waterloo group left contact information and will offer some support in organizing in other parts of the community. You can find that information on our Facebook page, facebook.com/The Mike Farwell Show. And you'll see the information right there, including the email address to maybe establish a similar group of your own. The other thing I will say about this, and because I get the frustration, and I was just talking to somebody on the weekend about the incredible change that we have seen in our own neighborhood. There are just more people in the neighborhood, more dogs being walked, more people walking and jogging, etc., because it seems like most of the houses have been duplexed, either legally or otherwise. I don't know, but there's a lot. It's just a lot more congested in the neighborhood. That's the sign of the times because we have such a dire need for housing. But what I will remind you in this, like, I'm as supportive as I am of anybody getting more involved in following what happens at their city council, because not enough people are, in my opinion. We do the best through the show, but we're only one show. But remember, just because you get to have your say doesn't mean you get to get your way. And it doesn't mean council's always right either, but they do get the final say in matters. And even though you took the time to eloquently share your concerns, it doesn't mean that council's going to see it the same way. But I strongly encourage the effort like Eyes on Waterloo, because maybe you'll bring to light something that council hadn't thought of, and it will be taken into consideration, and you can help shape the future of your neighborhood. I'm all for it. So anyway, just to follow that up from Bill's call before the news update. Back to Rant or Rave with Mike. Good afternoon, Mike.
Good afternoon, Mike. Just a bit of a rant. As you know, I'm a Laurier alumnus, class of 1985. Back then, the chancellor of Wilfrid Laurier University was John Blackayre, the lieutenant governor of Ontario. And I remember sitting in the Kitchener Auditorium during our convocation, and at that time, they played the Vice-Regal Salute, which is a couple bars of God Save the Queen and a couple bars followed by O Canada at that time. But they also had some significant cultural things. There was a Native Canadian blessing. There was hymns sung by the Elmer Eisler choral group. And it was a really nice convocation. But over the years, Mike, after what Wilfrid Laurier has done on a number of things, me and my fellow alumni do not feel comfortable donating anymore, because they do stuff like this, suspending O Canada, and I've got some friends who don't like what they did to Lindsay Shepherd. But you know what? I think our president, Deborah there, McClatchley, has to understand that she has to serve all the students and all the alumni. And sometimes she doesn't, Mike, and those are my thoughts for the day. All
right, Mike, thanks for the call. It kind of makes me think of a city council serving an entire city. Not everybody's going to be happy all the time, are they? Mark, good afternoon. You're on Rant or Rave.
Good afternoon, Mike. I got a couple of things for you.
All right.
First of all, Rave. I really like Reed as the new captain.
Oh, what a great choice. Cameron Reed, the 60th captain in Kitchener Rangers history.
Great choice. I agree.
Yes, sir.
Secondly, Mike, going back to your previous segment about the Canadian national anthem not being played.
Yes.
I really like that the Rangers do that every single game. And now I got a question for you, Mike. Whatever happened to the giant picture of the Queen?
Great question, Mark. And I'm pretty sure it's in storage somewhere. You know what? And I've been meaning to. I just get busy and distracted, and I see another shiny object. I'm going to try to find out. Okay, it's starting the old portrait of the Queen from the Kitchener Memorial Auditorium, which used to be there before one of the many expansions. I believe went into storage, but it's starting to sound like the stuff of urban legend, like Kaiser Wilhelm's bust. Do you remember that story where some youth back in the day, in and around World War II, threw the bust of Kaiser Wilhelm into the lake at Victoria Park, and it was never to be found again. Even though they dredged the lake and tried to find it, it was never found again. And there are all kinds of rumors around that, legends. It was melted down, turned into napkin rings. It's buried in some park somewhere near downtown Kitchener. Whatever. I think it's a fun piece of local history. I don't know where the portrait of the Queen ended up, but I think it's in storage somewhere. I will endeavor, Mark, following your question, to stay focused and see if I can track it down. And yes, just one more note on Cameron Reid, named on Friday, the 60th captain in Kitchener Rangers history. What a perfect choice. He's an incredible kid. He's a hell of a hockey player. And the Kitchener Rangers have themselves a very strong leader with the C on his jersey for sure. Greg, you are next on Rant or Rave. Good afternoon.
Hey, it's 38 here.
Farwell's Force member, number 38 officially. Good day, sir.
Hey, okay, quick rave. Got to just say for the Jays, because now, like, when they do something like this, it basically can filter outside the ballpark, and it's going to bring communities together. It's going to increase business. Just such a good thing, not just because, yay, they did it, we love them. It's just all those spin-off effects when they make it this far in the country, the togetherness that it ends up bringing. So
great point.
So rave to them. And rant, oh, God, did you hear the Super Bowl halftime?
What is a Bad Bunny, Greg?
I don't know. I'd rather Bugs Bunny do it. Like, what is that? Like, I don't know.
I'll tell you exactly what it is.
It's the rapper?
No, I don't know. It's catering to an audience that is far younger than us, Greg. It's that simple.
Oh, yeah. So all the sponsors that pay $5 million for 30-second ads, they're all run by kids? No, I think the companies should.
No. But the companies don't have anything to do with the halftime show. The halftime show, Greg, the halftime show is the National Football League trying to attract a new / different audience. It's the league that's doing that.
While irritating for 20 years and counting, their current audience.
Greg, you'll get over it. They're still going to play the football game, buddy. But I'm with you. I don't know what a Bad Bunny is. I thought bunnies were nice.
Oh, but then every year, let's mix it up at least. Let's get some, rock acts back in there to.
Yeah, give us some old guy stuff again.
Well, there's a cry for it every year, and every year it's like, huh, again. Someone there needs to be fired.
All right.
That's my rant.
Thanks, Greg. I appreciate it. Listen, I'm with you. When I heard it too, I'm like, what is a Bad Bunny? I don't know. Quickly, Greg identified himself as Farwell's Force member number 38. Sherry called earlier, Farwell's Force member number 36. Dallas, Farwell's Force member number 30. If you want to be a member, we'd love to have you as part of our official Farwell's Force. All you have to do is give us 15 minutes. I mean, you can give us more. You give us 15 minutes a day, you qualify as an official member of our force, a force for good, a force for change, a force to be reckoned with. We'll give you a number. We'll put your name beside that number, and collectively, we're gonna stir things up around here, right? So whether you call or you don't call, if you tune in for 15 minutes or more on any given day, hopefully every day. No, every day. You got to be 15 minutes or more every day. We'll make you a member of Farwell's Force. Absolutely, we will. Pat, you're next on Rant or Rave. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Just have a comment with respect to your first segment on universities.
Yes.
In my view, I think it's almost factual that Canadian universities lack diversity of thought. And I think it gives rise to individuals like the Charlie Kirks of the world and his organization, like Turning Point. And I think that they are extremely important voices that we need to have in the dialogue. Canadian Journal of Political Science survey found that around 75% of professors are left-leaning, and within the humanities and social science departments, it's almost 90%. And so when students look at the syllabi within these programs, it's going to feature predominantly authors and theories that align with progressive frameworks. And so students are most likely going to self-censor their views within these programs. So I think more diversity of thought is very, very important. Thank you.
Thanks, Pat. Listen, I don't think there's any disputing those statistics. What I hope is not happening, though, is that students are censoring their own diverse opinions, their own diversity of thought. I would hope not. And I would hope that if there is diversity of thought, it is not just tolerated, but welcomed. I mean, let's have conversations. As I said earlier, we all learn more when we are open to different perspectives. So anyway, I'll leave that there for now, but Pat, thanks for weighing in on it. George is next on Rant or Rave this Monday afternoon. 00 George, Farwell's Force member, 00. Hey, George.
That is me, Mike. I need your synopsis on what happened on Saturday. I had a chance to watch most of the highlights of the game. I need your synopsis. Did you find the Rangers were a little bit tired, or is Owenstown really that good of a team? I'll hang up and listen.
All right, George. Thanks for the question. I would say a little from column A and a little from column B. And I'm not here to make excuses for the Kitchener Rangers. The coaches won't make excuses for the Kitchener Rangers. The players won't make excuses for themselves. But I think there might have been a wee bit of fatigue. It couldn't have been that bad, though, because it's not a huge, long trip to Owen Sound. But in fairness, the Attack did not have to play on Friday. The Kitchener Rangers did. So maybe. The other thing is, though, that, yes, the Owen Sound Attack, a team that did not make the playoffs last year, are a better club than they showed. They got moving in the right direction towards the end of last year in terms of the culture of the team. They moved out some players maybe that didn't fit the culture, brought in some players that did, etc. And their work ethic is like right up there with the best in the league. So I think they came out flying in their home opener on Saturday night. And I don't know that the Kitchener Rangers were all that interested after the first period in playing that kind of game on Saturday night. And Owen Sound kind of took it to them, which is why I will say again, come this Friday, 4 nights from now, Kitchener Memorial Auditorium, Owen Sound's coming to our barn. I think she's going to be a dandy. I know it's only the 5th game of the season, but she's going to be a dandy. So by all means, join us at the Odd. It's going to be a great night. It always is. It's Friday night in Kitchener. What do? You go to the hockey game. Rant or Rave continues on the Mike Farwell Show this afternoon. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. On Mondays, our Talkback Hour is for your rants and or raves. Rant because something is making you upset. Rave because something happened that was really good. Gosh darn it. Back to the phones we go. John, Farwell's Force member number 67, my friend. Good afternoon.
Yes. Hi, Mike. Good afternoon to you. And if somebody with number 24 is listening, as I mentioned in the past, I will trade 67 for 24. But
you're such a rascal, John. I'm going to stop taking your calls.
Well, okay, let me get through with this rant first then.
Okay.
I guess it's sort of 2 in 1. First, we all know how the big grocery chains are gouging us, I believe. But let's not forget what the big banks in Canada. They are ruthless with their fees, with their charges, and it's all evidenced, I believe, in their quarterly profit margins. I just got my notice from the TD telling me what some of the changes are coming. One for sure is they call it the TD all-inclusive banking plan, which is a bit of a farce anyway. You have to keep a minimum of $5,000 in the past. That jumps now to $6,000. They have an increasing annual fee for their safety deposit boxes. That goes from $60 to $80. I cured that a number of years ago when I decided to use the mattress security plan at my house. But as much as, and I watched this thing on Facebook, Made in Canada, and it's primarily talking about the gouging in the grocery chain industry. But let's not forget how the big banks and their profits are gouging us on a daily basis, and they continue to get away with it. I guess it's white-collar crime. I'm not sure, white-collar robbery. But that's what's at my back of my throat today, Mike.
John, appreciate it, and I'll do my best to bite my tongue. But I will say, I think you're spot on. I've long felt the same way. And just to give you the story on John's Farwell's Force official member number 67, he wanted to be number 67 because he is a fan, John is, of the team that shall not be named. So, And he wanted to be 67 so that every time he called, I would be reminded that it has been since 1967 that my team, the Toronto Maple Leafs, has won a Stanley Cup. He wants to trade for number 24 because that's how many Stanley Cups his team, that shall not be named, has won. Listen, we don't go trading around our membership numbers all willy-nilly on this show, okay? You get your number. We gave you 67. He's such a rascal, just like that team. But speaking of that team, did you see former Kitchener Ranger Arbor Jackeye never got drafted into the Ontario Hockey League, earned a spot with the Kitchener Rangers, never got drafted into the National Hockey League, earned a spot with the team that shall not be named, and on the weekend, they put an A on Arbor Jackeye's sweater with that team. Look, I won't mention the team's name because I'm a Leafs fan and I strongly dislike that team that shall not be named. But respect for the accomplishments, the history, the storied nature of the franchise. And A is for Arbor Jackeye getting it on his sweater with that team. That's pretty cool. And I love me some Arbor Jackeye, the whole story about how hard that kid worked. Incredible stuff. All right, back to the phones here. Rant or rave. Liam, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, my friend.
Good afternoon.
I wanted to talk about a couple of things. First, number one, I really think that the World Cup happening in Toronto is going to be pretty hectic. This past Saturday, I drove all the way to Toronto to watch Messi and Inter Miami play Toronto FC, and it was very chaotic driving into downtown Toronto and driving out. I think I spent more than an hour both ways just trying to get to and from the game. So that definitely was the most challenging part for me because I had to really practice patience and stuff, and I really think that we might be not quite ready for the World Cup just yet, just because of how chaotic traffic is in Toronto. And then I also wanted to talk about some good news, since I don't like to be negative all the time, but the Waterloo Ravens picked up back-to-back wins this weekend, and I had a chance to try play-by-play for the very first time, which was interesting, but very exciting.
Well, Liam, I'm glad to hear it, and I appreciate you sharing that, especially letting us know that the Ravens, our Waterloo women's team, picked up those back-to-back wins. I'll bet your play-by-play was excellent. And if I may, getting back and forth to Toronto in an hour would be a pipe dream. You can barely get from the 427 downtown in an hour these days. But anyway, I digress. I don't disagree that the World Cup, when it comes, Toronto's got to figure itself out, because for a world-class city, it certainly doesn't have world-class ways of getting around. All right, and on that note, I gotta leave you for the day. Remember, Farwell's Force, you give me 15 minutes a day. I give you 4 hours. Come on with your coming on. I ask you for 1/16 of that. I love you. You know that. And you are a force for good, a force for change, a force to be reckoned with. Tomorrow on the show, it's the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. We'll have some good conversation about that. How about National Drive Electric Week? Talk about some EVs and more when we reconvene tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. My name is Mike Farwell. Bye for now.